by virtue of regulations passed due to the COVID-19 pandemic to enable constituted meetings and decision-making to take place virtually. The requirement for public meetings to be made accessible to the public remains, and the link to the virtual meeting is available on the Council's website in the usual live meeting link page. If a connection to a member is lost during this meeting, all efforts will be made to enable the connection to be restored. If the connection cannot be restored within a reasonable time, the meeting will proceed, but the member who was disconnected will not be able to vote on the matter under discussion, as they would not have heard all the facts. Should any aspect of the external link fail, I may call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes or so to determine whether the connection can quickly be re-established, either by video technology or telephone in the alternative. If the connection is not restored within that time, the meeting will be adjourned and any further business will not proceed until another time and date. Any public questions submitted for the meeting during this period of virtual meetings will be read out by myself and answered at the meeting. Could members please mute their microphones whilst not speaking to reduce noise interruption during the meeting, and unmute when a vote or roll call is about to be taken. I have, in consultation with the group leaders, varied the order of this agenda due to the changes from the regulations, but I also need to ask members if they will move and second an amendment to Council Procedure Rule 15.5, as it would be difficult to provide council consent advice to move an extension to speeches. It has been proposed that timings will include the extensions. Therefore, any member wishing to speak will be granted 4 minutes 30 seconds, and those members with a right of reply 6 minutes 30 seconds. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Gloucester to second this.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Is there any dissent? No. Item 1, apologies. I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Sykes and Ahmed. Item 2, attendance and declaration of interest. A roll call will now take place to confirm the attendance of members and for members to declare any interests.
Councillor Akhtar.
Present.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
Present.
Councillor Ali.
Present.
Councillor Alias.
Present.
Councillor Ball.
Present.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
Present.
Councillor Briggs. Councillor Briggs.
Present.
Councillor Brownridge.
Present.
Councillor Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Chatterton.
Present.
Councillor Chowan.
Present.
Councillor Cosgrove.
Present.
Councillor Curley.
Present.
Councillor Davis.
Present.
Councillor Dean.
Present.
Councillor Fielding.
Present.
Councillor Gary.
Present. And can I declare pecuniary interest in item 8D?
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
Present, and I'll declare a personal interest in item 8D, please.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
Present, and a personal interest at 8D.
Councillor Goodwin,
Present.
Councillor Hamlet,
Present, and I shall also declare an interest in item 8D.
Councillor Hack,
Present.
Councillor Harkness, Councillor Harkness,
Present.
Councillor Harrison,
Present.
Councillor Hewitt,
Present.
Councillor Hoban,
Present.
Councillor Hudson,
You was there.
Councillor Hudson,
Present.
Councillor Hume,
Present.
Councillor Aftab Hussain,
Present.
Councillor Feeder Hussain,
Present.
Councillor Ibrahim,
Present.
Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Iqbal,
He's watching.
Present.
Councillor Jabbar,
Present.
Councillor Jakes,
Present.
Councillor Leach,
Present.
Councillor Malik,
Present.
Councillor McLaren,
Present.
Councillor Moores,
Present.
Councillor Murphy,
Present.
Councillor Mushtaq,
Present.
Councillor Fithian,
Present.
Councillor Price,
Present.
Councillor Roberts,
Present.
Councillor Salamat,
Present.
Councillor Shah,
Present.
Councillor Sheldon,
Present.
Councillor Shuttleworth,
Present.
Councillor Stretton,
Present.
Councillor Surjan,
Present.
Councillor Taylor,
Present.
Councillor Torr,
Present.
Councillor Raymond,
Present and pecuniary interest item 13.
Councillor Williams,
Present.
Councillor Williamson,
Present.
Madam Mayor.
Present. Right. Item 3. Is council agreed that the council minutes from the meeting held on the 17th of June 2020 are agreed as a correct record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Does any member want to dissent on this? No. Okay. Item 4, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 5, communications. There are no communications. Item 6, petitions. There are no petitions for council to note. Item 7 is youth council. I call on Zoe Cummings from the youth council to present the youth council motion.
Thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting lockdown has proved to be a trial for many people around the world. As a youth council, we have consulted with various young people to explore the specific areas of everyday life which have been greatly affected by the restrictions that we, as a nation, have had to follow. We asked young people in Oldham to share their experiences of lockdown for them as individuals. We found that these restrictions have had significant impacts on our educational experience and employment aspirations, and in turn this has led to further stress and strain being put on young people's mental health during lockdown. Indeed, it has been reported that as a result of schools being closed and jobs being furloughed, many young people may lose a sense of structure and positive stimulation, and this will lead to an increase in anxiety and depression for many young people. It is now clear that this pandemic will have a devastating effect on our society, and in particular on young people. The current economic crisis risks pushing an additional 600,000 18 to 24-year-olds nationally into unemployment in the coming year. In addition to this, there will be long-term damage to their pay and job prospects even after the economy recovers, unless new support is provided. The risk to the borough could be particularly devastating to young people, as the reported youth unemployment rate in Oldham in May 2020 stood at 15.1%, the highest across Greater Manchester. This will again be increased as the employment rates of graduates entering the work during the pandemic are projected to be 13% lower than they would have been without the crisis, while rates for mid and low skilled workers risk falling even more by 27 and 37 respectively. Furthermore, those who do find work are likely to face reduced pay, Class of 2020 report by the Nuffield Foundation states that 1 year after leaving education, the pay of graduates is projected to be 7% lower and 9% and 19% lower for mid and low skilled workers. Oldham's average salary comparison is already £8,000 per annum lower than the national average. There are also questions about whether there'll be work for those who've been furloughed, let alone those just beginning to enter the labour market. This all paints a rather grim picture for the future employment of young people. It hasn't all been bad news, and we've seen some positives with the ongoing COVID-19 lockdown. With schools delivering remote teaching, our digital skills have increased. Teachers and students have learnt about apps such as Google Hangouts or Zoom, Google Classrooms or Microsoft Teams. As people are staying home, they've been using technology a lot more and learning new skills such as how to socialise via video calling apps, starting online social media accounts, trading products online, freelancing or selling services, and some people have even learned how to code in Python or manage big data on Excel. We are given tasks and asked to research rather than have someone stood at a projector or whiteboard giving us the answers. All of these skills are transferable, and maybe, more than ever, young people will be ready for the world of work and have the creative and digital skills needed for the future workforce. We believe Oldham Council needs to be an advocate for the skills young people are currently accumulating during lockdown, as we're currently unsure that these will be recognised or that the job opportunities requiring these skills will be available to us. The increase in digital skills has already been proven to assist in productivity with the ever-changing workplace, helping increase chances of those who are unemployed finding a job and helping with the introduction of digital services from some key providers. Young people have had to have the opportunity to get more acquainted with the digital work whilst during lockdown, whether that is for school or home benefits. Some young people will have gained digital skills in photography, in animation. The list is long, and it would be a shame if these skills could not be enhanced further once lockdown is lifted and we try to return our normal lifestyle. These skills should not be left on the back burner and forgotten, leaving time during lockdown wasted. These new skills could be brought a new light to pathways young people might want to take for their future, and should not be let their potential dwindle and disappear, especially with the rise of youth unemployment becoming an unfortunate reality. A larger recognition of the digital skills would help young people feel more comfortable with entering a forever expanding sector, which is shaping our society as we speak. Lockdown has brought us many negatives in all different aspects of life. However, we do not want these negatives to overrule the positives that have come from working online. We need to open opportunities for young people, and we'd like to see designated apprenticeships for young people within the digital industry to enable the skills that Oldham's young people have gained to be used and not wasted. This would also help Oldham's economy as we build up our digital industry. We ask Council to resolve that 1. Oldham Council pledges its commitment to providing quality job opportunities for young people and developing the digital sector within the town. 2. A review is undertaken of the current apprenticeship offer across Oldham to ensure that there's a broad range of high quality opportunities available to all young people. And 3. As one of the largest employers in Oldham, digital apprenticeships are considered for those leaving education. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Does any member wish to speak? I've got notification that Councillor Fielding would like to say something. Councillor Fielding?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And thanks, Zoe, for presenting such a well-researched and thorough motion. It's another really great example of our fantastic Youth Council in action. The issues and opportunities that you've highlighted are absolutely the right ones. The pandemic has affected everybody, but young people in particular need to be at the forefront of our minds as we look to rebuild. The challenges young people have faced, not being able to attend school, can't be underestimated, but are often hidden from the public debate. And all young people will have been affected by not being able to go to school, but particularly those in homes where space may be limited, where there's conflict, or where there isn't a reliable connection to the internet. We know that this pandemic is also likely to have expanded existing inequalities. And for those young people who are at the start of careers or planning the next step into work, the impact may be even greater than we're currently seeing. Just today, data has been released showing that 17-year-old women are the group most likely to have been furloughed. 61% of jobs done by these people have been furloughed, and the figures are similar for young men. My concern is that many of those jobs may not return, leaving even greater youth unemployment than that which is being forecast. And we as a council and collectively as a society have to do everything that we can to address this. To start with, we have to do a better job of acknowledging, as you have done, the high-level skills that so many young people have and that will have developed over the pandemic period. We need to support young people to demonstrate those skills in a way employers understand, and we need to be working with our partners and potential employers to create the kind of jobs that will be the basis of our economy now and in the future. To help people build and demonstrate digital skills, I was really pleased recently to be able to announce work that we're doing with the Rio Ferdinand Foundation and BT in Oldham to provide free skills programmes for young people in the borough. It's going to start with an online summer programme and then expand in the autumn. MadLab have also started developing a similar programme and offer for Oldham, so it seems we're really building this kind of capacity at exactly the right time. Beyond Oldham, in Greater Manchester, there's a really strong focus on supporting the development of digital skills too. As part of my own role at the Combined Authority, I am responsible for the Greater Manchester Digital Blueprint, which sets out our plan to both boost digital skills around the city region and help businesses flourish in the digital age. To help create the jobs that will get young people moving in their careers, there is plenty more that we can do too. I can confirm that we have started a review of the Council's apprenticeships offer, and as a major employer in the borough, we have a responsibility to help young people from Oldham build great careers, and I would welcome the involvement of our Youth Council and other young people in this review. As you suggest in the motion, there's huge potential for apprenticeships with the Council and other big employers that are based on digital skills. As more services move online and every part of our lives becomes more dependent on technology, these skills have never been more in demand. I hope that we'll be able to provide you with an update on progress with that shortly too. We're also working with the Oldham Leadership Board to look at what more we can do collectively to create opportunities for Oldham young people. It's to the benefit of the whole borough for the staff at the council, at the hospital and at the leisure centre, for example, to be Oldham residents. Our Get Oldham Working service has been really successful in helping people find good jobs, and clearly as we come out of lockdown that will be even more important. We're also working with the Growth Company and colleagues across Greater Manchester to build support for people who might be interested in setting up their own business or social enterprise. In the digital world, the barriers to getting started if you have an idea don't have to be very high, but we need to provide the support to help people with expertise and finance in those early stages. The journey to building back better is going to be a long one, but we need to act quickly and effectively so that young people are not left behind. Thanks again for bringing this motion to the Council, which I'm sure we can all support. I look forward to working with you over the next few months to make sure that on this and in other areas we keep putting the voice of young people at the heart of our recovery. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Councillor Ali?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank Zoe and the Youth Council for bringing forward this very timely and important motion. Lockdown and the current pandemic continues to be proved challenging for many people around the world and here in the UK, and more so on our young people. The COVID-19 situation has had significant impact on our young people and will continue to do so in terms of education, employment opportunities, and effect on mental health. Our young people are in the worst position they could ever be in, and I fully sympathize with their situation. It has affected many of my family members, and no doubt thousands of families and young people across Oldham. As a council, we will do everything we can to help our young people by trying to address all of the factors that is limiting their aspirations. Digital skills will no doubt lead to productivity across all sectors, and we need to continue to do what we can to develop the digital and green energy sector. It will make Britain more competitive in the global market, and without not wanting to shrug off responsibilities, support from government will be crucial to assist us to break into the green energy sector. It is also important, I think, whilst we try to achieve these ambitions, we engage continuously with our young people and ensure we capture their suggestions, their expertise and their talent. It has always been the Council's pledge to support young people and digital sector, even prior to the lockdown. And with the current situation, we need to accelerate our ambitions and think deeply about how we are going to do all of this. We are always aiming to increase apprenticeship and opportunities for all, and as a council we have offered apprenticeships to all, including young people, and we will continue to do so. However, volumes have been low over the last few years due to budget constraints. Yes, we probably need to look at creating more intermediate, I'd say, across the sectors, including digital, which will be beneficial for school leavers. We need to make better connections, I think, for our young people to ensure they are receiving the best support to access opportunities. I think we need to continue to ask our businesses to create more entry-level apprenticeships and opportunities. Studies have shown that nearly 700,000 jobs could be created in the green economy in England by 2030. We need to do everything we can and make sure as many of these opportunities are created here in Oldham. Once again, I sincerely sympathise with the situation of our young people, the situation that they find themselves in. We will do everything we can, as our young people are our future, and you will always be at the forefront of our minds. I thank the Youth Council for bringing forward this very timely and important motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Hazel Gloucester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank Zoe for bringing this before us and also congratulate her on your presentation, Zoe. Thank you. As somebody who worked for a very long time within post-16 education, I completely understand the reasons for this motion. Unfortunately, this age group are the ones that suffer the most in relation to funding cuts, changes in government administration, and the availability of provision every time our landscape changes. One of my responsibilities for many years was the NEET group, and many will know that this has mainly been funded through the European Social Fund for many, many years. However, the outlook does look grim, because replacement of this funding, when I have asked, is still met with a resounding no. I was around when the apprenticeship scheme was actually reborn as modern apprenticeships, and I can honestly still say that this has been for many years and still is one of the most successful training provisions available. It offers a good and sound development of skills, knowledge and understanding, together with the technical certificate, and since key skills were added, a fully rounded menu that can be studied in bite-sized chunks to produce a fully rounded individual that displays true competence within a role. It is therefore unfortunate that the lack of availability of apprenticeships, particularly at the higher levels, and although degree apprenticeships have been much has been made of, I have yet to find their availability on the high street, so to speak. There are more apprenticeships, courses and programmes available within the digital sector now, but to be honest, I don't believe that the industry has actually kept pace with our technology boom in the way that it probably should have. I therefore ask that we support this motion and second the proposal for submission to observation scrutiny for further investigation, so that we can at least have a good handle on the post-16 COVID employment, training, development and mental health of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I applaud the Youth Council for this motion, both its content and the thinking that has gone up behind it. And I also welcome Councillor Fielding's response. I look forward to further involvement of young people in the design and management of programmes which they give priority to. And I'm sure within the Greater Manchester framework of skills development and Councillor Fielding's role in that, we stand a good chance in Oldham of making sure that Oldham's young people benefit from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Councillor Roberts, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Has everybody spoken? I noticed that Councillor Hudson's hand was up.
Yes, I'll come to him next.
Oh, right, okay, because I want to come in at the end of the debate.
Okay.
In order to make a procedural motion.
Okay, I'll call Councillor Hudson then. Thank you. Councillor Hudson? No. Councillor Roberts?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I should have known you were on top of things. Right, so I'd like to make a procedural motion under item 1410 of the Council's Constitution to refer this to overview and scrutiny. This is because this is the path that is open to us in order to take up the suggestions that are made by the Youth Council in their motion.
Okay. Councillor Gloucester, can you second that?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, Madam Mayor, Councillor Chris Gloucester, I'll second it in line with the changing rules.
Thank you. Does Council agree?
Agreed.
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 Right, Liz, can you do a roll call, please?
Councillor Akhtar,
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani,
4.
Councillor Ali,
4.
Councillor Alias,
4.
Councillor Ball,
4.
Councillor Bashforth Marie,
4.
Councillor Bashforth Stephen,
4.
Councillor Briggs,
4.
Councillor Brownridge,
4.
Councillor Byrne,
4.
Councillor Chatterton,
4.
Councillor Chowan,
4.
Councillor Cosgrove,
4.
Councillor Curley,
4.
Councillor Davis,
4.
Councillor Dean,
4.
Councillor Fielding,
4.
Councillor Jarry, 4. Councillor Gloucester,
4.
Chris, Councillor Gloucester Hazel,
4.
Councillor Goodwin,
4.
Councillor Hamlet,
4.
Councillor Hack,
4.
Councillor Harkness,
4.
Councillor Harrison,
4.
Councillor Hewitt,
4.
Councillor Holby,
4.
Councillor Hudson,
4.
Councillor Hume,
4.
Councillor Hussain Aftab,
4.
Hussain Feeder,
4.
Councillor Ibrahim,
4.
Councillor Iqbal,
4.
Councillor Jabbar,
4. 4.
Councillor Jakes, 4. Councillor Leach,
4.
Councillor Malik,
4.
Councillor McLaren,
4.
Councillor Moores,
4.
Councillor Murphy,
4.
Councillor Mushtaq,
4.
Councillor Fithian,
4.
Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts,
4.
Councillor Salamat,
4.
Councillor Shah,
4.
Councillor Sheldon,
4.
Councillor Shuttleworth,
4.
Councillor Stretton,
4.
Councillor Surjan,
4.
Councillor Taylor,
4.
Councillor Torr,
4.
Councillor O'Rayman,
4.
Councillor Williams,
4.
Councillor Williamson,
4.
Madam Mayor.
4. The motion is now referred to overview and scrutiny. Thank you. Item 8 is question time. This part of the agenda is question time, where Council will consider all questions submitted in the order received, starting with public questions. Due to the current situation, I will read out all the questions that have been submitted. There is a 15-minute time limit for public questions, and once this limit expires, no further questions will be asked. If the time limit has expired and a member of the public has submitted a question which has been ruled in for consideration, the question and response will be published on the Council's website. The first question has been received by Nazrul Islam. The council announced that it has established a discretionary grant fund for businesses who were not eligible for the government grants. How much has the council paid out via this fund, and how many businesses have been helped by it? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Nazrul for the question. The council is administrating the government's discretionary fund. At the close of play on 13th of July, we had spent £2.23 million of maximum 2.51 million available to spend and had supported 234 businesses. Applications are still being processed, and subject to completion of the review of the application, we hope to support around another 30 businesses over the next few days. The council is making maximum use of the government grant schemes before considering the payment of grants to any businesses that fall outside government's arrangement. We have also, Madam Mayor, lobbied the Secretary of State. I've written to him, and the leader of the council, Councillor Fielding, has also lobbied government for us to give us greater flexibility to use the allocation that we received as part of the small business grant to support businesses in Oldham who fall outside of the grant criteria and have not received any financial assistance. Unfortunately, to date, we have not received any confirmation of that flexibility that we requested, but we'll continue to lobby, and our intention is to support all businesses in Oldham who have lost due to the outbreak of coronavirus. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. The next question has been submitted by Helen Norton. I would like to ask when pools and gyms will be reopening, as I was a regular user of both Failsworth and Oldham leisure centres and have missed not being able to attend. I am aware that other countries have reopened theirs and wonder when we may be in a position to reopen our centre. Thanks in advance. I call on Councillor Chauhan to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for the question. As you might be aware that Oldham gyms are operated by Oldham Leisure Centre and Oldham Community Leisure, and they are following national guidance. The gyms will be opened as per national guidance when is deemed safe. I can assure you that we're taking appropriate measures and following the appropriate guidance to ensure that gyms are open as soon as possible in safe environment. Can I also take this opportunity, Madam Mayor, to thank our OCL team for providing support to the residents of Oldham during COVID period. Many of you will know that OCL opened their centres to create food banks for most vulnerable people in our communities. They also offer their parking spaces, parking car parks to let us do testing for COVID related testing, and also continue to run online classes. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to also thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chauhan. The next question. Can I ask that you all put your speakers on mute, please? The next question has been submitted via Ian Manners. My question is, how is Oldham Council planning to address the gap in its finances caused by COVID-19? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Ian for his question. The Council is still working through the full financial implication of the impact of COVID-19, and at this moment in time, we know that there is a shortfall of £20.8 million in this financial year, and with a projection of a shortfall of £41 million next year. We are still working through those numbers, and we have recently received an award, but actually we haven't received the allocation yet, so we're waiting to understand what that will mean for Oldham Council. But there's no doubt in our mind, Madam Mayor, that there will be a pressure on our finances both this year and next year. And to address the potential challenges that we'll be facing, then we will have to review both our revenue and capital spending plans, including the Creating Better Place programme, with a view to reduce expenditure in year. And I'm afraid that's not what we wanted to do, but there is a later in the agenda a full discussion about this. But at this moment in time, we're still working out what it means. But it looks like, Madam Mayor, there's be a serious impact in this year budget as well as next year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. The next question has been submitted by Kerry Dwen Short. I hope I've pronounced that right. My apologies if I haven't. I have a question for the next full council meeting. I love walking in Daisy Nook. It is a real gem of green space in a part of Oldham that doesn't have lots. I was very upset that an illegal rave took place in the area and the way that it was trashed with lots of rubbish being strewn all over. What action has the council taken against those who plan this illegal rave, and also to restore Daisy Nook to its natural beauty? I would also like to say thank you so much to the volunteers who turned up at short notice to help clean up. I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we share your concern and disappointment, disgust at the state that Daisy Nook was left in after this little run. We've been and we'll be best placed to provide any updates. As you point out, we've been great in the CFC community volunteers who came out to help clear up, and I would like to echo your thanks to them. Our cleaning teams have subsequently also visited the area to remove litter and debris from alongside the river and further clean up the area. And we're also engaging with the Canal Trust to undertake a shared approach to cleaning the environment in a sustainable way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. The next question has been submitted by Connor Green. School closures were the right decision to reduce the spread of COVID-19, but how have young people been supported so they do not fall behind from having missed weeks of education? I call on Councillor Mushtaq to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Connor Green, for the question. Oldham schools have continued to support children and young people throughout the COVID-19 situation by remaining open for vulnerable pupils and those of critical workers throughout the period, including during school and bank holidays. Keeping in touch with families is a priority for schools at present, and good communication has never been more vital. Children can feel isolated in a house full of people and may be missing quality time with peers, space to work or a place to be quiet. Many families are trying to work from home whilst providing education for their children. Regular check-in by school staff creates the opportunity to guide pupils to appropriate home learning opportunities and to support their emotional well-being. Many parents require guidance on how to support children, and some need advice about additional family support. Alongside this, schools are providing a variety of home learning activities that meet children's academic, physical, mental and emotional needs, and providing support for parents. Work and resources are being delivered in a variety of ways in line with guidance provided by the DFE. The use of technology has increased exponentially during lockdown, as mentioned in the Youth Council motion. Schools are using different mechanisms and platforms to share information and home learning activities with pupils and parents. They are also striving to ensure that pupils without sufficient access to technology can still access their school's learning offer. Examples that are being used include hard copy packs of work, reading books and textbooks available for collection from school, posted or delivered to homes, technology equipment loans by schools and additional provision by the DFE and GMCA, informing parents that activities on websites can be accessed on mobile phones or at the BBC bite-sized lessons are on TV by the red button, and setting activities that require no printing or screen time. As children return to school, teachers will adapt their curriculum plans to ensure that they meet the demands of the national curriculum and take into account the different learning experiences their pupils will have had during the period. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. The next question has been submitted by Nick Georgiou. I am a member of the general public and would like to ask a public question for the council meeting on 17th of July. I am interested to know how the council will develop its green credentials and what its investment plans are for depolluting our area. One of the noticeable consequences of the COVID pandemic has been the flourishing of wildlife and cleaner air, with further green projects added to hydro project at Dovestones and other green initiatives for which I applaud you. We could become a carbon neutral at an accelerated pace. Solar farms, bike lanes, encouraging employers to allow their workforce to work from home are all initiatives I'd love you to pursue. Can you undertake to invest in schemes such as these? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Nick for his interest in the environment and the green agenda. Building on our previous achievement on climate change and the environment, Oldham Council adopted the UK's first ever Green New Deal strategy in March this year, just before the lockdown. Now we're also looking at ways that the council can help to make sure that the positive environmental changes we have seen since March are not lost, by supporting residents and businesses to maintain the changes in behaviour which are improving our environment. Here at Oldham Council, we have enabled all of our staff to work from home, except where it is been essential that they are in the office or other places of work. And we are looking at all of our buildings and land and car parks for opportunities to install solar powers and energy efficiency measures to make the council more efficient and cut our energy bills and carbon footprint. We're investing in cycling and walking infrastructure and will deliver a number of B network scheme over the next couple of years to help people make better travel choices for health and for the environment. We're also looking at new ways we can engage with our resident online to find out how people would like to improve their neighbourhood to make them safer and greener and support them to make these improvements. Oldham is already home to some first-class parks and green spaces, and with our existing new Northern Route project, we are going to be making sure that our offer to residents is even better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. The next question has been submitted by June Rodison. I have heard that Oldham Library will be opening on the 6th of July 2020 with a limited service. I understand the need to maintain social distancing and other health protection measures. I would, however, like to be able to access my local library, Crompton. Could the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods let me know when local libraries will reopen and what services will be available? Also, when will it be possible to browse the shelves? I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've developed a phased approach to the reopening of library services to reflect and align with the gradual easing of restrictions, but also to ensure we've got enough staff to operate safely, because some of the staff have been redeployed to essential COVID-related activities, and this has to take priority. We also need to ensure that we've tried and tested processes that can be replicated and, if necessary, adjusted to deliver services safely at other sites. All our sites are being fully risk assessed and will only open when we're sure that they're safe. If it all goes well and COVID cases continue to decline, we hope to be able to introduce browsing at Oldham which I will be very pleased about, and start to open our full-time community libraries between August and December. The focus will be on access to books and IT, and other services and programmes will remain online for the rest of 2020. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. We have time now for one more question. The next question has been submitted by Glyn Williams. I would appreciate if the following question could be asked on my behalf. Following Marcus Rashford's brilliant work and subsequent victory on free school meals over the summer, I was wondering how many children in Oldham will be receiving meals on a daily basis. I call on Councillor Mushtaq to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Glyn Williams, for the question. And I agree it was a fantastic campaign by the footballer Marcus Rashford, and I can confirm that all children entitled to free school meals, which is approximately 10,765, will receive a food voucher entitling them to food over the summer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. We will now move on to item 8, Leader and Cabinet question time. The next part of this section is questions to Leader and Cabinet with a time limit of 30 minutes. I have advance notice of questions. The Deputy Leader of the main opposition will ask his questions. Councillor Chris Gloucester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For my first question, it concerns the issue of coronavirus local lockdowns. It's a great tragedy that after 4 months we're still dealing with the impact in human suffering, lost lives and increasingly the economic downturn caused by this terrible virus. Just as the situation appeared to be slightly improving and people began to experience hope, on the 29th of June the Health Secretary announced that the first local lockdown would be applied. This was, of course, in Leicester. This included the closure of schools, except for the children of key workers, which partly reopened on the 1st of June, and non-essential retail, which reopened across England on the 15th of June. Before the lockdown in Leicester, the government had suggested that local restrictions would be handled by local leaders. What actually happened was that the imposition of lockdown in Leicester was decided by a central government. Boris Johnson's leadership has overseen fatal communications blunders. These blunders kept local leaders in the dark on what was happening with COVID-19, much too late. When Leicester went into lockdown, the government said that the local 7-day infection rate was 135 cases per 100,000 people, 3 times higher than the next highest city. How did it get to that clear level of cases and local politicians and officers hadn't had a clue as to what was going on? The aim of a local lockdown is to control the spread of COVID-19 by containing it within a localised area, but not necessarily by authority. It means reimposing social distancing restrictions across the whole of the affected area. Sadly, Oldham has become harder hit than many other towns and cities in England by the coronavirus pandemic. I'm optimistic that we have the right preparations in place for the worst case scenario. As the government has given consistently conflicting and confusing advice and acted slowly and communicated slowly, please can the leader tell us what we're doing locally to make sure that we are ahead of the game, even if the Conservative government isn't? I know tonight that we have another detailed report on Oldham's response to the COVID-19 crisis, but I believe many of our concerned residents would welcome an honest appraisal of our local situation and a reassurance that Oldham is ahead of the game in layperson's language. So I invite the leader to provide that appraisal and reassurance tonight by telling us more about our Oldham plan if we are required to go into local lockdown. And I would specifically welcome his assurance that the local track and trace testing data from the Department of Health and Social Care and its contractor Deloitte is now being passed on to our relevant health teams so that they can act on them to help mitigate against any local spike in COVID-19 infection. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on the leader to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Gloucester for his question. I do want to take the opportunity to echo many of the points he's raised about the disappointment in the communication strategy from the government and the lack of communication and sharing of data from the government with local authorities. I imagine it was incredibly frustrating for leaders in Leicester to not be in full possession of what they needed to anticipate the position that they then later found themselves in. I'm pleased to say that in Oldham we have a comprehensive COVID management plan. We're also doing amongst the highest rates of testing in the country, including some quite innovative testing of asymptomatic people in at-risk occupations such as taxi drivers, such as frontline restaurant workers, and other high-risk occupations with high levels of exposure to other members of the public. We're also testing those at risk, and we've been testing in care homes for considerably longer than other places have been doing, in order to make sure that we get a measure on exactly where our figures are at, so that we can come to any judgment about what we may need to do in future, or put in any mitigating measures far enough in advance to have the effect of helping us to avoid local lockdown. Only this morning I was on a conference call with the Mayor of Greater Manchester, where I called for his support to ask for negative testing data. That means the data on people that have had coronavirus tests and they have come back negative. That is one element of the data that unfortunately the government still doesn't share with us, and so we cannot build it into our forecasts. However, we do have far more data than we had not so long ago, including the Pillar 2 data, which led to us being featured, I would say unfairly, in national and local newspapers. Whilst we did have whilst Leicester had an infection rate of 135 per 100,000, which led to its local lockdown, Oldham, as it stands today, and I'm just pulling up the figures, is 11.8 per 100,000, which is slightly above average, but of course nowhere near the 135 per 100,000 that Leicester had. I was very disappointed with some of the coverage we saw in the papers and the areas that were singled out for particular interest in newspapers. We saw the Telegraph name Bradford and Oldham as places at risk of local lockdown, when if you actually looked into the data yourselves, you could see that there were other places that were in worse circumstances than us that weren't named. Now, anybody watching this call can probably surmise as to why the Telegraph will be motivated to highlight Bradford and Oldham, but not others that featured in that list. But in order to reassure Councillor Gloucester and members here tonight, we have a comprehensive COVID management plan. We're continuing to do more testing than we need to. We're continuing to demand all of the information from the government that we need, although we do have far more than Leicester had before it went into lockdown. And I am convinced that we are well placed to avoid local lockdown, but very well placed to manage whatever might be necessary should we find ourselves in that position.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Councillor Chris Gloucester, to ask your second question, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor, and can I thank Councillor Fielding there for a very comprehensive and reassuring answer for the people of Oldham. So my second question, Madam Mayor, my question concerns, no it doesn't, no that one doesn't. Humblest apologies for this, Madam Mayor. There we go. Madam Mayor, later tonight I will second the Cabinet Member for Finance's motion attacking the government for its failure to honour its promise to fully reimburse councils like Oldham for the financial Later tonight, I will second the Cabinet Member for Finance's motion attacking the government for its failure to honour its promise to fully reimburse councils like Oldham for the financial hit caused by coronavirus, and I am happy to do this as he and I are both as one on this issue. However, I regret that this entente cordiale cannot extend to another issue concerning a town centre regeneration project which has dragged on and on. I am of course referring to the Prince's Gate development. The BBC on the 19th of November 2014 reported Oldham Council an announcement of the game changer and the promise of a 150,000 square foot retail development with 800 homes and 700 parking spaces. Now, after the withdrawal of Marks and Spencer's, we no longer have a game changer. We have a promise of a 28,500 square foot retail development and a hotel, and the promised missing retail giants are now Lidl and Travelodge, not M&S. However, anyone passing this site, probably on a tram, can see nothing is happening. Yet the council town centre vision, agreed in June of last year, promised work due to start on this site in autumn 2019. It is interesting to contrast this inactivity with that seen in the centre of another town that you go to by tram from Mumps, and that town is Rochdale. Here you can step straight off the tram and into the new Riverside retail and leisure development. Councillors there also call that development a game changer. For phase 1 is a development totalling 200,000 square feet, including 24 shops, restaurants, a 6-screen cinema. Not only can you play indoor golf and watch a film, but Rochdale offers visitors a new Marks and Spencer's food hall. Work on this site started in 2018. In April, the food hall opened, and in the last few days, other units in the development have started to open as promised. 2 years on, bang on time, despite coronavirus. From time to time in council meetings, we gently rib our neighbours in Rochdale, but not on this, Madam Mayor. They've got things so right and we so wrong. The leader will be very aware that we are fast approaching our 6th anniversary of inactivity at the Mumps site. So for my second question tonight, I would like to ask him, when will this frog finally be turned into a prince? When will we finally see something begin to happen at Mumps? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Councillor Fielding to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Gloucester for his question at Mumps. We remain committed to the complete regeneration of Oldham Town Centre and rebalancing of the economy in Oldham away from a retail-led economy so that we can create the kind of nighttime economy, nightlife, leisure and dining opportunities that we know that people in the modern day would like. We know that people don't shop in the same way as they did on the local high streets. And it is interesting that Councillor Gloucester refers to Rochdale because, of course, while there has been new retail space created in Rochdale with their development, it is not completely new. It is simply replacing the existing retail space that on Yorkshire Street. And of course, if you walk up Yorkshire Street in Rochdale, it's not quite the fairy tale that Councillor Gloucester is hoping for down at Mumps Bridge. Now, we know that down at Mumps there is incredible opportunity to build new homes, to build new retail, to build new leisure opportunities, and we need to do so in such a way that does not undermine the existing retail core of Spindles up in Oldham Town Centre. We know that we have to get the development down at Mumps absolutely right. And I think that if coronavirus has delivered any positive, it is the opportunity to reevaluate our entire regeneration strategy in Oldham, as Councillor Jabbar alluded to in his comments on creating a better place in an earlier response. So I can assure Councillor Gloucester that we remain ambitious for the area in and around Mumps Bridge. We still want to bring hotel provision to Oldham Town Centre. We still want to bring retail units to Oldham Town Centre, though not necessarily in the same numbers that they have existed in the past. But if Councillor Gloucester is looking forward to the day when he can hear some news about when it will turn into, that this frog will turn into the prince that he desires, I can assure him that it is not very far away.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. The Leader of the Minority Opposition to ask a question. Councillor Hudson.
Madam Mayor, I've got the question.
It's got to be Councillor Hudson, I'm afraid.
Unless he's incapacitated.
Is Councillor Hudson incapacitated?
Madam Mayor, he's been having trouble with his computer and he asked if he was unable to speak. Could Councillor Byrne put the question in?
Okay, thank you very much. Continue, Councillor Byrne, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Saddleworth School runs its own successful catering department and has done for some years. The catering staff are funded through income from this department. Income available to use for this is £300,000. The school is the only community school in Oldham running its own catering service and therefore does not qualify for any government grant. Academies and trusts with their own catering departments may be funded differently. The school needs to pay the staff itself, and there will be a deficit of £150,000. This is in addition to the losses, as in other schools, from lettings and lessons. Can we find a section of funding to cover this in the government grants which the council has received? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I call upon the leader to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Byrne, for her question. I'd like to thank the catering staff of Saddler School and the catering staff of all schools, for that matter, who've continued to provide meals for both vulnerable children who've been attending schools and also those who have not been attending but still require feeding during the day. I do recall from my own days at Failsworth School that there was a time when, prior to conversion to an academy, the catering service at Failsworth was brought back in-house because the quality of food could be guaranteed to be much better than that which at the time could be procured from private providers, though that's not to cast aspersions on any private providers that may exist and be operating in the borough today. I sympathise with Councillor Byrne's comments and sympathise with the school's position that it sounds like it may be unfairly disadvantaged due to the structuring of its catering service within the school. Without further details, I'm unable to comment or give any assurance on what we might be able to do to help, but I can give Councillor Byrne the assurance that we are committed to supporting our schools through this because of how they have supported our communities, and I will ask that contact is made to see if there is anything that we can do to help out with the funding gap that the school is predicting because of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. I call on Councillor Gary to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How can you tell if an alleyway is adopted or unadopted, and how does it affect the ability to gate it? There are many alleyways in Failsworth West which are not gated, which residents wished were, because they'd like to improve them as communal spaces, like many resident volunteers have in other gated alleys. It's very frustrating as councillors when there are residents keen to improve their area, but the barriers to gating an alleyway scupper their good intentions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The ability of the council to gate an alley is governed by the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act, and that's dependent on the council's ownership and or duties to maintain the land and the funds available. In addition, there's a requirement under the legislation to evidence crime and disorder at a location to justify the need for the gates. The council can't physically restrict access over privately owned land, but residents can work with private landowners to have gates installed through private arrangements with locally arranged funding agreements to undertake installations and maintenance. The details of who owns any piece of land can be obtained via the land registry. Residents may be able to apply for grant funding for such community schemes, and we would suggest that residents contact Action Together, as they will be able to advise on grant streams currently available. And as a council, we fully support this type of collaborative and cooperative working for environmental improvements in neighbourhoods. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. I call on Councillor Hume to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the council acted quickly to paint double yellow lines on the A635 Holmfirth Road following a weekend of an unacceptable parking and behaviour by a minority of visitors to Dovestone Reservoir. Unfortunately, we're still receiving reports of double and pavement parking on the A635 and other local roads, which can make it really difficult for residents to get in and out of their homes. How can we encourage people to keep fit and enjoy the countryside in a socially distant manner without overwhelming beauty spots like Dovestone? And what more can the council do to tackle this antisocial behaviour by people who should know better?
Thank you, Councillor Hume. I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We very much sympathise with the residents with the problems that have been caused by the popularity of Dovestones in the surrounding area. As you know, it's owned by United Utilities and managed by the RSPB, and the council's work with them and other partners to find solutions to the issues created by the unprecedented number of visitors. And as you know, we funded additional marshals who are on duty every day. The double yellow lines recently installed on the Home Firth Road were introduced to address the significant problematic parking which caused serious road safety and traffic congestion. Although visitors' numbers peaked under COVID-19, these these problems had occurred previously as well. Now that the TROs are in place, traffic officers have been meeting with local councillors to consider how to best manage the impact of displaced parking that's taking place in adjoining residential areas and the village of Greenfield. Enforcement action regularly takes place, and 514 fixed penalty notices have been issued since the 7th of June. The vast majority of these were either in the car park or on Home Firth Road, but in other residential streets too. Peak District National Park is trialling a car park traffic light system so that visitors can see which car parks are full before they set off. The continuing message from United Utilities, RSPB and the Council is enjoy Dovestones, but please try and act responsibly, respect the surrounding and clean up after yourselves. And we would also suggest that there are many other green spaces in Oldham, such as the Pennine Bridleway, Alexandra Park, Dunwood Park, local trails such as Oldham Way, Medlock Valley Way and the Crompton Circuit, as well as the canal routes, which all could be used to reduce pressure on Dovestones itself. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. I call on Councillor Jakes to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Greater Manchester Spatial Framework is intended to allocate land for up to 14,000 homes in the borough to meet our projected housing need. This included up to 260 homes on land in Woodhouses Village in my ward, which is currently designated as Greenbelt. These proposals were strongly opposed by local residents. I am grateful to the leader for meeting with local representatives of the Greenbelt Action Group to explain the position and understand that the council was committed to looking for more viable brownfield sites to develop on Greenbelt allocations so that they can be reduced. Given the delay for the framework caused by COVID-19, has the council used the time to find more such brownfield sites? And if so, how soon will we know whether they can offset Greenbelt allocations such as those in my ward? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jakes. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jakes, for your question. So every year the Council reviews our housing land supply position. The Council's Creating a Better Place programme identifies a series of residential-led development opportunities which have already been referred to, I think, in this meeting, as part of repurposing the town centre, and this feeds into our latest housing land supply. In addition, many of the GMSF responses suggested that derelict mills should be built on before using Greenbelt land, a suggestion I fully support. A mill strategy is underway to look at which unlisted mills should be protected but also possibly be converted for housing, taking into account financial viability and other constraints. The strategy will also identify less important unlisted mills, which could more easily offer land for new homes. At the same time, we do not want to undermine successful businesses which operate from some of our mills. All of this evidence will feed into Oldham's land supply. The revised housing land supply and other detailed viability work commissioned by the GMCA, the Combined Authority, to inform revised strategic allocations, which will be published in the final GMSF proposals later this year.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I call on Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. St Paul Church on Rochdale Road, Shaw, partially collapsed in February 2019. And in excess of £250,000 later, we have been left with dwarf walls and a pile of rubble. The Deputy Head of Planning has made clear that this cannot simply be rebuilt and would need a complete rebuild. There are over 400 graves under this rubble of local shore people, and this site is an absolute eyesore. Can I ask how efforts to resolve this issue are progressing? If this was Oldham Town Centre, I'm sure that it would have been resolved a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gloucester, for your question. I understand that a number of meetings have been held with representatives from the church and their contractors, which local members have attended. While the focus has been on making the building and site safe, the future use of the site will need an application from the site owners. Unfortunately, recent events have made wider meetings impractical, but planning officers will again make contact with the owners to discuss any proposals they might have. I do think this is an issue around ownership and sorting out what the best approach is rather than something to do with location.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I call on Councillor Briggs to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dog fouling continues to be a problem across the borough because of irresponsible dog owners. One area where it causes a major problem for my constituents is Recreation Road playing fields in Failsworth East. This playing field is used by local football teams, and the organisers of the matches often have to clean up the field themselves in advance of matches because the amount of dog dirt on the field makes it dangerous for local young people to play on. Is there more that can be done to prevent dog fouling this and other problem areas around the borough? And what can we do to tackle these irresponsible dog owners? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish there was an answer that I could give you that would solve this problem, which I think is a national one, not just in Failsworth or in the wider Oldham. Ultimately, we have to challenge owners to change their behaviours. So if we witness individuals letting their dogs foul playing fields, it needs to be reported to the environmental health team. And obviously, we will take action against it insofar as we can with the limited resources available to us. I will ask for the signage around the fields to be reviewed and enhanced to make it clear, but ultimately I'm afraid there isn't an answer if people are going to continue to act so selfishly and inappropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. I call on Councillor Hack to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, foster carers plays a vital role in caring for some of Oldham's most vulnerable and sometimes challenging children and young people. Could the relevant member please tell us what support was put in place to support foster carer during this very difficult period? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hack. I call on Councillor Moyes to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hack, for the question. This council recognises the vital role that foster carers play in enabling children and young people to feel safe, secure and stable. In these unprecedented times, foster carers have gone above and beyond to ensure that children and young people receive the highest standard of care, and I would like to thank them for that. We are acutely aware that COVID-19 has had a significant impact on our foster carers. We have therefore increased our level of support to them to counteract some of the additional pressures. Some of the support provided is as follows. In recognition of the financial impact COVID-19 has had, we have given all foster carers an extra 2 weeks allowance payment in this financial year as a one-off contribution. We have managed to maintain an active duty system, which means that foster carers always have a point of contact during working office hours. Supervising social workers have continued to offer direct support to the foster carers they support. And during this period, the Healthy Young's Mind Service have provided additional consultations for foster carers, and they have supported carers in facilitating support groups. We have also purchased specialist online training to support foster carers and children. We have been proactive regarding offering support to carers in respect of critical issues such as Black Lives Matters. And we are also sending out weekly news bulletins to all foster carers. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. I call on Councillor Ibrahim to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of young people have been out around the borough enjoying the fine weather. Unfortunately, they are also tempted to take part in activities such as swimming and barbecues. We all know how dangerous these activities can be for individuals involved and the local environment. Could Council please tell us what interventions were put in place to try and encourage young people not to participate in these types of activities, and have the youth service been active during this period? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ibrahim. I call on Councillor Morris to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ibrahim, for the question. Yes, our youth service have been active in supporting young people throughout the lockdown. There have been some limitations in what they could deliver face-to-face, but our detached youth work team and the district youth work teams have been out in our communities. The team have focused their efforts on supporting young people to be safe, delivering key safety messages and offering support where needed by targeting key hotspots such as reservoirs, parks, open spaces and other places where young people enjoy spending their time. They are also actively involved in the GM Safe for Summer campaign. This is an annual partnership campaign which takes place over the summer months involving Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, Greater Manchester Police, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, our own community safety team, plus others, with the ultimate aim of to keep young people safe and provide information to their parents and carers. For more information about this, you can go online at www.safeforsummer.com. I would hope that you would all support me in thanking the youth service and our partners for the work they have done in trying to keep our young people safe, while adhering to the social distancing restrictions that remain in place as we combat COVID-19. But it doesn't finish there. We now have a wider plan for summer provision. Our youth services have a comprehensive summer programme of activities that will be available to support young people during the summer months. This includes face-to-face youth work in all communities, as well as targeted youth work in the hotspots I mentioned earlier. And in a few minutes, I will forward an email to all councillors advising them of some of the work that will be going on during the summer period. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Unfortunately, we only have time now for one more question. I call on Councillor Al Hamdani to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the work to ensure that a thorough equality strategy is underway, as promised in the motion on Black Lives Matter at the last meeting. However, our equality objectives, which were due to be updated at the start of the year, still have not been. As these were due before the current coronavirus outbreak, and we have a legal obligation to update them, could the Cabinet member please inform me as to the reason for the delay and give a firm date as to when they will be updated? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Al Hamdani. Councillor Shah to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Al Hamdani, for your question. Oldham Council, as you know, are committed to tackling unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, advancing equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. In 2019, we had started to review our equality objectives, as you mentioned. However, it quickly became clear that this needed to be a more in-depth piece of work. I personally really wanted to ensure that our objectives aligned to our workforce strategy, as well as being backed up by a plan for how we could achieve them. That's why I was really pleased to be able to announce the development of that strategy at the last council meeting, which I'm co-developing with Councillor Amanda Chatterton. The aim of the strategy is to place equality and diversity at the heart of what we do, setting ourselves ambitious goals and measuring progress against these in order to drive organisational improvement, because I think that's what's needed if we're really going to have an impact. However, I believe that it's important that the strategy and accompanying objectives are co-developed with partners and our residents. That's why we will be taking the draft strategy to Oldham Equality Advisory Group for consultation in the next fortnight, after which we will formally adopt the strategy and revise equality objectives through our internal governance process. And I would be happy to bring this to September Council, Madam Mayor. It's more important that we have a meaningful document. And I know Councillor Al-Hamdani is really passionate about this, just as we all are. And I'm sure he'll approve that this position that we took was better, because you want a document that we can all stand by and believe in, as opposed to just meeting deadlines and then not have the substance that's required for change. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. We move on to item 8C. The next part of this section is questions on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Shah to second.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
The Council notes that the minutes of the Cabinet are circulated. Is there any dissent? No, it's moved. Do any members who are not Cabinet members wish to ask a question on the Cabinet minutes? I have indication that Councillor Sheldon would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to ask Councillor Fielding for an update from the meeting of the Cabinet on the 23rd of the 4th, 20, item number 10. I assume now that the purchase of the land in Diggle, earmarked for the new Saddleworth School, is complete. Can I ask how much the purchase of this land? Also, can you assure many residents that the Clock Tower building, I believe is a listed building, will be protected? I would also like Council to consider the following. When the existing Saddleworth School is removed, will the Council revisit the plans for this Upper Mill site and include a much needed larger medical centre to replace the existing facility on Smithy Lane? This would provide space at the current Smithy Lane Health Centre to be developed into village centre car parking. This is something which residents and businesses have been asking for many years. Indeed, I would suggest that some businesses have suffered from the lack of parking spaces. I would like to bring these suggestions on behalf of the local Conservatives who believe in forward planning, forward thinking and transparency. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Fielding to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Sheldon for his question. I really hate to do this because I always try and give an answer within the meeting in which a question is being asked, but I don't want to give you incorrect or misleading information, and I simply don't want to spend the time sifting through the papers now or trying to find the document online where it's contained, which would deprive other people of asking the questions. But I'm happy to put the responses to your questions in writing after this meeting, which can be shared as widely as you would like, just as much as they would have been had I been able to answer it verbally tonight. But I hope you'll be satisfied that I will provide you an answer, but I'm just not able to do it within the meeting this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Item 8D. The final part of this section is questions on joint arrangements and partnerships. I call on the spokesperson to move the minutes. The Police and Crime Panel. Councillor Williams.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Councillor Fielding.
Move, Madam Mayor.
The Mayo Care Board. Councillor Steve Bashforth.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Peak District Park. Councillor McLaren.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have a question on the minutes? I have advance notifications of questions. Councillor Al-Hamdani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is relating to page 43, Police and Crime Panel, item PCP 0920, in which the Deputy Mayor provided a verbal update on the 3 strands of the CSE review. which at the time we were talking about Operation Augusta with reference to Maggie Oliver's allegations, the situation in Rochdale, and the way that we respond in future to allegations of sexual exploitation. Due to the timing of the meeting, it was not covering the investigation into Oldham, which commenced and has been running in the period since. Given the importance of this for anyone who has suffered any form of exploitation and for reassuring other members of the public, could you let us know when we can expect information to be provided on the investigation into Oldham to the GMCA and the Borough Council, and what areas we would expect the initial report to cover? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Al-Hamdani. Councillor Fielding, to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Al-Hamdani for his question. I'm pleased that I'm able to publicly and put on record the response as well, because I know that there is ample speculation on the internet that is based on, but it's been made by people that are not in full possession of the facts surrounding this issue. The review into historic child sexual exploitation in Oldham, which is being conducted by an independent review team, is well underway, as Councillor Al-Hamdani acknowledged. The review is overseen by a Greater Manchester Combined Authority Steering Group, which is chaired by the Deputy Mayor, and the review team regularly report progress to this group. Given the terms of reference, which are publicly available, the complexity and the independence of the review work, the Council is not in direct control of the timeline for completion of the review or the release of its report, and nor should it be, to guarantee true independence. However, through the GMCA Steering Group, we are confident that positive progress is being made. It is regrettable that the most vocal of those making allegations of historic failings on child sexual exploitation online have refused to engage with the review. It is furthermore regrettable that a small number of individuals continue to share and repeat allegations that seem to have no evidence behind them. I cannot comprehend the mentality of those who would withhold evidence of child abuse, but yet exploit the issue for personal, political and financial gain, as we witness on the internet. In fact, I find this behaviour, as I'm sure any decent person does, utterly sickening. I do hope that upon hearing this response to Councillor Al-Hamdani's question, those who are making the allegations without presenting evidence to support them to the authorities will think again about their behaviour. I hope that any victims will not be denied the justice that they deserve by selfish individuals holding on to information that could allow prosecutions to take place and the answers that we are all seeking to be provided. We will provide further detail to Council on this when we have it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. I call on Councillor Harkness to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's on the Greater Manchester Combined Authorities meeting of the 14th of February, and it's page 65 relating to the GM investment framework approvals, and it's item 5. So I refer you to note. I refer you to the note under item 5 that an update on James Briggs Limited be noted. This sounds innocuous enough, and few people, even journalists, would bother to investigate what is hidden within the lack of detail. Further digging through the update reveals that in 2013 and 2014 were made by the GMCA to James Briggs, totaling 4.25 million for business expansions and capital investment. In August 2019, the business was bought, and at that time payment was made to the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, supposedly to settle an outstanding debt. Unfortunately, this £1.6 million payment still left the Combined Authority £1,317,380 out of pocket. The authority chose to write this off. The agenda item was hidden and the language seemed obtuse. A failing as big as this should have been easier to find, not spanning several documents in less than 100 words. This is real life-changing money that could have been spent on vital services in the region. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I read, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority wrote off £1,370,000, I'll say that again, £1,317,000, £370. I would like to ask the question why, because it is the fact that Teroskia acquired the James Briggs firm in August 2019, a company now with a turnover of more than £150 million per annum. It is the shareholders of this parent company who would have benefited from the write-off, and the ratepayers of this and the other 9 Greater Manchester authorities who lost out. Why was pressure not put on the private company to pay up? I'd like to hear a worthy answer that justifies a write-off of £1.3 million to a huge company which is rolling in cash. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkness. I call on Councillor Fielding to respond, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkness for his question. The investment fund from which the James Briggs original loans were made derived from the Regional Growth Fund, which was granted to the GMCA for investment into businesses in 2012 and 2013. The GMCA took the decision to create a recycling fund offering loans to businesses in Greater Manchester that could not access all of the private sector funding that they required, and therefore creating or sustaining jobs that otherwise would not have been created or sustained had things been left to the market. The nature of the financial interventions provided by the Greater Manchester Investment Fund involve higher risk than traditional bank loans in order to ensure that access to finance is available to more Greater Manchester businesses than it otherwise would be. Unfortunately, this also means that the risk of default is higher, and in some cases, the value of investments may not be recovered in full. The James Briggs transactions date back to 2013 and, at the time of the original investment, provided much needed financial support to a long-standing and significant employer in the Oldham Borough. Due to a deterioration in the company's financial position, £1.9 million of GMCA's loan was converted to equity in January 2019 to stabilise the business and safeguard jobs within the Oldham economy. In June 2019, the majority owner of James Briggs agreed to sell the business to Tetrasil, and as a minority shareholder, GMCA was forced to sell its shareholding also. GMCA received the same price per share as the private sector owner of the business, and this represented the market value of the investment at the time. There was nothing that the GMCA could legally do to increase the share price, but officers did have several meetings with management and Tetrasil to maximise the return to GMCA as much as possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. May I call on Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 93, Mayo Care Board, 23rd of January 20. Item 9, MD update. The minute reports the end of year loss of £229,000. I would like to ask how this loss is being addressed to make the business solvent again, and what the impact of this loss will be on the delivery of services in this and future years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. I call on Councillor Steve Bashforth to respond, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Hazel, for the question. These losses occurred mainly of the impact on the pay awards recently given to MyoCare staff. Unfortunately, there was no effect on service delivery. In fact, I think MyoCare performed exemplary through the COVID crisis. Obviously, actions are definitely in place now to mitigate against a similar position in the future. And with MyoCare being part of the Community Health and Social Care Alliance and are a key partner in the evolving integrated health and social care for Oldham, we've got plenty of opportunities to do that. In addition, MyoCare has also taken on additional activity in the form of managing the new Hollybank supported living apartments, and that should help with the balance of the books as well. Now, for the current financial year, MyoCare will be reporting a balanced budget, and much of the COVID-19 related costs that have or may still occur can be managed through the access to the National Government's Infection Control Fund. And in fact, I did another check this afternoon, and in period 5 accounts that are going to be presented to the board in the next couple of weeks, we're actually showing a forecast of 64k surplus. So we're already on top of it, Hazel. And as I said, there's absolutely no effect on the services provided. But what this does, it highlights the underfunding of adult social care in this country, and the massive budget pressures we face. So this is reflected with the challenges faced by all social carers, not just MyoCare, across the sector. And obviously MyoCare, along with all other responsible social adult social care concerns, will continue to lobby the government for increased, for a review in the way the very important social care functions are financed. I hope that answers, Hazel, and I'm sure you'll get a written copy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bashford. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is page 47, Police and Crime Panel, 31.1.20, PCP/14/20, 2020 to 2021, and it's the PCC component of the mayoral receipt. On the recruitment of new police officers, whilst the news is welcome, please can I ask how inequality issues are being addressed in the recruitment of new officers for Greater Manchester, and specifically for Oldham, to ensure that the composition of the Greater Manchester Police Service continues to reflect the communities that they serve so well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. I call on Councillor Williams to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Diane Williamson for her question, please. Diane, I only received a question just late yesterday afternoon, so the answer I'm going to give you now is just very brief, but I will actually formally give you a more proper answer. Diane, can I just tell you this? Out of all the recruits that passed out to the last training course that they had, I think it was about November last year, more than half were female. And the Chief Constable here in Greater Manchester, Ian Hopkins, is the National Chiefs Lead for Diversity, Equalities and Inclusion. Oh, hang on, camera's not on, is it? I'm going to get the camera back on. Yeah, that's it. And Greater Manchester Police actually have a positive action team that actually try to make sure that the recruiting process is taking place properly. Diane, I've got to say this though, there's a bigger question to this though, and I will write you about your specific question when I find the details better. This afternoon, they did find some figures that came along that indicated what ethnic diversity communities had taken place in the police force. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I'm going to wait with that. I'm not going to share that. I'm just going to make sure that data is correct. This is the thing, though, Diane. If you look back to, say, my job that I work at Shaw, I work for a large distribution company, the people that apply there for those jobs from all nationalities do it all the time, and it works brilliantly. We all get on, it's fine. But what is it in the mental set of people that are scared to somehow join the police or the fire service or the ambulance? And it's not just those three, it's other elements and all, isn't it? And you're thinking, hang on a minute, why is it that you've got a huge amount of talent in people from ethnic minority backgrounds that have this fear of, I can't become a bobby, I can't become a firefighter? And I don't know what it is that, because if you look at a gentleman that's in Oldham Town Centre, Zib Iqbal, the bobby that's in Oldham Town Centre. If you've been in Oldham Town Centre, everybody, you'll have seen this guy loads of times. He's a traditional beat bobby with a pointed hat on. Lovely guy, really nice guy. Don't mess about with him because he'll have you. And he joined the service years ago, 15 years ago, and he's been in the town centre, an Asian gentleman, and he's been in the town centre all those years. And I said to him at a meeting I was with him not too long back, and I said to him, Zib, how come you came into Oldham and when you became a bobby? What was it that attracted you to being a bobby? And he just turned and said, Steve, just want to get the job done. And given his background, he's done it brilliantly. He's had the Oldham Town Centre beat, Diane, for 14, 15 years. And I'm thinking, the police really need to try and do this better. So does Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service and all the other services that's trying to go and recruit people like that. But this gentleman that's done this makes me think, Diane, if he can do that on his own, then there's other people out there that can just come and join the Greater Manchester Police Service and just do it naturally. But somehow, somewhere, somebody somewhere has got to be able to tell these people, look, come and join us, we'll help you. So I'm just thinking, whatever the police seem to do, it just doesn't seem to happen where people want to just come and join. I don't know what it is, but I'll tell you what, Diana, we've got a police crime and fire panel meeting next week, and I'll ask at the meeting there then, just what processes are taking place to try and recruit people better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Right, we're moving on to item 9 now, notice of administration business. Motion 1, I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Gloucester to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm privileged to have been the Council's Cabinet Member for Finance since 2011 and a councillor in Oldham for more than 25 years. In this time, I've been fortunate to see firsthand many different ways in which our council officers and the wider Team Oldham family work tirelessly to improve people's lives. As a borough, we're very lucky to have so many people willing to go above and beyond the call of duty. That's been so clear in the last few months. Our key worker heroes have kept the borough safe, fed and cared for. And it has been wonderful to see that in such difficult times, our community supporting one another and showing their appreciation for everything our key workers do. Now we are using this motion to ask the people of Oldham to keep showing that solidarity and speak with one voice to defend those who have done so much for us. Over the last decade, there's been major changes in the way we operate. During the austerity period, we have lost £221 million from our budget. We have had to squeeze more out of every pound and made some real hard choices about services to cut or facilities to close. Prior to COVID, we heard from government that intended to level up, and I hope that meant we would be able to boost some of our great teams, reintroduce some of the services we lost, or provide investment we needed to really get Oldham economy moving. Of course, now that doesn't look likely. Ideas about levelling up seems to have been forgotten. As we responded to the crisis, the government tone shifted from local authorities should do what's necessary to stop the virus, and we will cover the cost, to local authorities will need to share the burden. That change in attitude leaves Oldham facing a serious budget problem. As things stand, we need to find 20.8 million to make up for increased cost and lost revenue this year, an estimated £41 million next year. Now these figures will change, Madam Mayor, as the government have made recent additional support available to council, although our allocation has not been received yet. However, it is impossible to achieve this level of saving without damaging the very services that our residents have relied on and appreciated so much. I hope that the campaign we have launched, Save Oldham Services, will demonstrate how important what our key workers do and get the government to fully fund the losses of Oldham Council due to the outbreak of coronavirus. The COVID-19 pandemic is a tragedy. All our lives have been changed, and the lives lost can never be recovered. In the long term, as a society though, we can build back better. We can build a greener society with more people living and working in their local communities. This motion and the Save Oldham Services campaign is about allowing us to fight without a hand tied behind our back. I'm delighted that the Liberal Democrats joined us in this campaign, and I hope the Conservative and the Independent councillors will do the same. This is about supporting our key workers and giving Oldham a fighting chance. I am so proud of what we have achieved in the last few months. Together, I'm convinced we can be heard by the government and continue to achieve greater things in the months and the years to come. I move the motion as printed in the Green Book. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the motion, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Liberal Democrat group on Oldham Council are more than happy to support this motion before Council tonight.
Hello, Fred. Sorry,
as my colleague Councillor Jabbar has stated,
so hopefully
we've been very fortunate in the way that the people of Oldham have responded to the challenges of this virus. As councillors, we have indeed been fortunate to witness the many ways in which our council colleagues, public sector employees, key workers and a whole host of voluntary groups and individuals have tirelessly and selflessly put themselves out and on occasion into harm's way to make life easier and on occasion survivable for some during this crisis, and for the work which they do and continue to do. I thank each and every one of them from the bottom of my heart, as do all my colleagues, and as I'm sure the rest of my council colleagues do. Being in opposition simply means that we hold this council administration to account, something that we do regularly. However, tonight's motion isn't about politics, administration or opposition, or indeed any political party or independent member on this council. It's about what is best for the people of our town, now, in the short term and in the long term. COVID-19 is a virus that will be spoken about long after any of us remain, and as the plague was, and as the Spanish flu was after. And the implications of COVID-19 will remain with us for years and even decades to come. However, decisions being made now will have future implications as to how we as a country emerge from this crisis, and these decisions need to be made now at whatever cost. However, a problem exists that will affect all the people of Oldham, and that problem is cost. As a council, we would be failing now in our duty if we did not proactively engage with a host of issues that have never been heard of or even thought of pre-COVID. But this council, and in particular its staff and partners, particularly the NHS and care sector, have had to rise to a massive challenge, all of which has had a substantial impact on council funding. This is my third year as Shadow Cabinet Member for Finance, and through regular briefings as well as preparing an alternative budget, I'm kept informed as to where Oldham stands financially, as well as implications for future years, which we need to plan for now. In February this year, the council presented its 2021 budget to the people of Oldham. COVID-19 was relatively unheard of, and its implications were not a consideration. That budget now lies in tatters, particularly capital spending. Times were hard beforehand. Post-COVID will be something else. I'll reiterate my colleague Councillor Jabbar's comments. We need to find £20.8 million this year and an estimated £41 million next year. Less money means less services. It's as simple as that. Oldham needs help, and we need the government to keep their promise to us by properly funding this council so that we can come out of this crisis in a position to build back better, be cleaner and be greener. This isn't just a local sentiment from the people of Oldham. The Local Government Association issued a detailed report on the 1st of July 2020, estimating that the financial challenges councils will face will reach £10.9 billion. And with just £3.2 billion of emergency funding received, there is currently the likelihood of a shortfall of £7.7 billion across the country. I would urge everyone to go online to the council's website and sign the open letter from the people of Oldham to the Prime Minister appealing to Boris Johnson to bridge this financial gap, and I'm more than happy to second this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Yeah, I have indications that a few members wish to speak. Councillor Shah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm keen to add my voice to this motion and pay tribute especially to the amazing work carried out across the council and our health services throughout this pandemic. Our people have continued to deliver vital services. The motion mentions our amazing frontline teams, bin men, carers, but there are so many more forgotten heroes, such as social workers, school catering staff, those processing grants and business support, our library staff, who were reading bedtime stories online, our leisure staff teaching classes via YouTube, all amazing, inspirational people. But unfortunately, due to the broken promises of the government, Madam Mayor, those staff now need us. They need us and they need the people of Oldham. We need to join together to ask for the funding we need to continue delivering these services. It would be unconscionable if after months of clapping for our COVID heroes, we had to make many of them redundant due to these broken promises. In wider terms, Madam Mayor, this is about the respect given by central government to local government too. We know, Madam Mayor, and we've seen recently when lives were at risk, we stepped up. We built new services and support for people. We redeployed our staff. We changed how we delivered. We showed how well we know our borough, how well we can adapt to what's best for Oldham and its residents. Local government, Madam Mayor, was and is the front line of COVID response. Imagine, Madam Mayor, what we could achieve if we had fair funding into the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Ali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's got to be recognised it is Oldham Council that has led our communities through the coronavirus crisis and will continue to do so. Council staff and in particularly frontline staff have continued to work day and night to protect the most vulnerable, support local businesses and bring together communities. As a result of all of this, Council has seen an increased pressure and at the same time significant drop in income. The government's emergency funding has helped to meet some of the financial impact of COVID-19. However, it does not cover all the cost and there is a big shortfall. As Councillor Jabbar said, a £20.8 million shortfall. And when the crisis initially hit, the government promised councils like Oldham all the resources they need. All the resources we need will be provided to help with the pandemic. And we just ask that the government delivers on that promise now. Oldham desperately needs certainty over further funding, as without it, it will have to make measures in anticipation of future funding shortfalls. This would mean in-year cuts to vital local services that our communities are relying on to get through this pandemic. Only with ongoing and consistent funding in the weeks and months ahead can Council keep supporting our communities, the local economies, the care sector and the health service during this crisis. The scale of the economic, environmental and community challenges we face should not be underestimated, Madam Mayor. It is vital that Oldham Council is fully funded so that we can support the economic recovery and come through the crisis. I will be fully supporting this motion and urge everybody else to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Al Hamdani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Although this motion talks about Oldham, I want to
I'll turn mine down. Let's see if that works. I'll turn mine down.
Sorry, there are other people. Hello. The motion talks about the response from Oldham, and that is because we are Oldham Council, and that is how we need to respond. But I think this is a much broader issue. If we look across the country, there are councils up and down who are in even a far worse situation than Oldham Council. Now, the government promised to help those councils with whatever is needed. And this is us and hopefully all of the people of Oldham turning round and saying, stick to your word. You promised this, deliver. But it's the same everywhere in the country. There are councils which are in far worse trouble than we are, and it's not just us speaking up for people in Oldham, it's speaking up for people up and down the country who are going to lose out on services, who are going to lose out on care homes and social care and all these services, and everyone loses out. Please support this motion as councillors and support this as people of Oldham, because everybody needs us to draw together and to carry on supporting each other. You know, it's been delightful to hear from residents who called me to say that a voice on the end of the phone line was looking after them and then called them back to make sure that everything did happen. But that's not the end of the story. And we need to make sure that Oldham Council and every other council gets what they need to carry on that story. Thank you. I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Al Hamdani. Councillor Surjam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to echo what has been said for this motion so far. We've seen many local residents go above and beyond in this crisis. Just 2 weeks ago, I visited the test centre at the Southgate Street, and I saw, I spoke to several staff members, and 2 of the staff members were actually from Oldham, and they were telling me how proud they were to be helping to serve the needs of the community by being there. And they actually requested some of the Oldham Council lanyards, to be part of the team. As a result of this, I don't see how we can fail them now when they need us the most. We must absolutely hold the Tory government to account and ensure that they give us the promise that they made by giving the money that they obviously pledged to us. And this money is going to be used to help those residents who are in need of it the most, and also help the council to be able to do that. And this money also will make sure that the council itself doesn't go bankrupt. So we must absolutely support this motion and make sure that the government gives us the money that it promised. It's as simple as that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Surjan. Councillor Mushtaq, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for those proposing and seconding the motion. It's good to see a cross-party motion come to council like this. Sadly, it shouldn't be coming to full council to have this discussion, because, as has been mentioned, this is something that was promised. This is something that we shouldn't be asking for. We shouldn't be having to implement an SOS letter. And it's just something that really hit me was when I was contacted by a charity, and it just, for me, epitomises the ethos of the residents of Oldham and of Oldham Council. And the charity contacted me recently to inquire about possibilities of funding. And what this gentleman said to me was, when the crisis hit, we didn't think about our finances. We just saw the dire need and the dire plight of the residents, and we just went out, all out, and helped as many people as we could. Now, clearly, that's not sustainable. Some might argue that wasn't sound financial or strategic planning, but I disagree on the front that these are human beings we're dealing with, and these are compassionate people who see other human beings struggling and can't help but go and assist and give their own time, energy, money to go and help improve other people's lives. Clearly, as a council, we do have responsibilities in terms of finances, and again, the words above and beyond have just been used by Councillor Surjan. Our staff, the ones I've come across whilst out volunteering, not a single one has taken this as a 9-to-5 thing where they've been redeployed and they're having to work 9 to 5 and they're clocking on and clocking off. They are going above and beyond, and it doesn't feel like they're at work. It feels like they're on a mission, they're on a cause, and that's what the ethos of our residents is. But I think moving forward, there's a broader point about the impact of austerity and the ability of local government and councils like ourselves to be in a position of preparedness when something like this hits. And that impact that ability has been diminished by a decade of austerity. And I think moving forwards, that's something that will have to come to the fore. But the sad thing is, we're having to bring motions like this and letters like this to ask for what was promised, which is what worries me moving forwards. If we're not getting what we're promised, I can't see how we're going to be able to build on what is already needed. So it is worrying, but I'm like I said, I'm really pleased that the motion's come, and I'd just like to thank everyone for everything they've done. We talk about staff, but those staff also volunteer, and the residents and the charity groups and the voluntary sector, everyone's been absolutely amazing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. And Councillor Fielding, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And thank you to, well, I want to extend my thanks as well and echo all the sentiments of those that have spoken already on thanking staff, thanking residents, and thanking all of the volunteers that have helped with the COVID relief effort, whether it's delivering food, whether it's phoning up to check on people, whether it's distributing PPE, whether it's having been redeployed from whatever team it is you're working within the council to administer the business grants. And to date, we have got more than 90% of our allocated funding in terms of business grants out of the door, whilst conducting checks that have ensured that it has gone to the right people and is a robust process. Thank you to everybody who has worked so hard on supporting people, communities and businesses and partner organisations through this crisis. I also do want to say thanks to the Lib Dems on the council for agreeing to second this motion. This is a cross-party effort because both the Labour and the Lib Dem group, nearly said everybody then, both the Labour and the Lib Dem group on the council recognise the dire financial situation, that the betrayal, and let's call it a betrayal because that's what it is, the betrayal by the government is going to leave councils like ours in. We were promised the money to reimburse what we had to spend to respond to coronavirus, and that promise has not been delivered upon. And what that means in practical terms is a betrayal of the people that Boris Johnson's tokenistic gesture of standing on the steps of Downing Street clapping on Thursday nights, a betrayal of those people that he was celebrating every week or claiming to celebrate. It means that people will be under even more pressure at work than they already have been after 10 years of austerity and 10 years of cuts and erosion of the staff and workforce here at the council. Now, even if you are one of those people, and we know that they exist, even if you are one of those people out there that wonders what the council does and wonders why people are paid what to do, which is completely and utterly ridiculous and unjustifiable anyway, but even if you are, the effect of cuts on public services in Oldham, and it's in Oldham especially, have repercussions throughout the entire economy. If you are a postmaster in Greenfield or a taxi driver in Failsworth or a publican in Chadderton, because of the nature of the economy in Oldham, the people that spend money, that pay your fares, that buy a pint from you or buy a pint of milk and a newspaper on a Sunday morning from your shop have more so than anywhere else, more than likely been paid with public money. We are a significant employer in this borough, as are other public sector organisations, and cuts to the public services all over the country, but particularly so here, mean less money in the economy, less money to spend within businesses and within the supply chain. Now, we've been here before. We've been here before after the financial crash of 2008, where the Tories, and I won't say supported by the Lib Dems because we've got their support tonight here in Oldham, but the Tories imposed cuts on the public sector which depressed growth and held back the economy, and we ended up going into a double dip recession in the early 2010s. Now this is going to happen all over again if again the Tories impose further cuts to try and what they term as balance the books in response to COVID. Now, if we were as concerned at balancing the books as people in 1945 were, we wouldn't have built the welfare state and we wouldn't have built the NHS. And we need to take a lesson out of that book rather than the lesson which was a negative lesson to learn of the aftermath of the financial crisis. But of course, I made reference to people believing that people at the council are overpaid and they're not entirely sure what they do. Now, however, if that was ever the case, and of course I don't believe that it ever was, that is certainly not the case now. The people that are left at the council are our frontline workers, are the people that empty the bins, they're the people that administer those business grants, they're the people that have been reading stories to children from the library, they've been the people that have been caring for our elderly. They are the bare minimum of what we need to operate now. There is no fat left on this council, and further cuts will not only damage the morale of staff and damage public services in the borough, but they will hold back the economy and mean that we have an even slower recovery than we need to have had we invested properly. So I hope that this motion, even though we've only got a Labour and Lib Dem mover and seconder tonight, I hope that this motion will get the full support of all members of the council. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Does Councillor Jabbar wish to reply?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd like to reply. I'm very grateful for everyone who spoke, and particularly to Chris Gloucester for seconding it. I think if I can just pick out a couple of points. So when the outbreak happened, we didn't wait for the government to say, you know, we will give you the money and here's the check and here's the funds. We went to provide the support to our community, because that was so vital. And what's happening here, Madam Mayor, is that the promise that the government made at the time, they're reneging on that. So, you know, it's about actually putting the Tory government and asking them, right, the promise that they made to honour that. So that was picked up very well by Councillor Surjan, and also the leaders, the point that he made so eloquently about betrayal, and actually all the other things that we have planned for in this borough will be at risk if we don't get the money from the council. And we're not asking for extra money. What we're saying is that we passed a budget back in February of this year, and it had a very ambitious programme for transforming this borough. Now, this is at risk, no fault of ourselves, no fault of mismanagement in Oldham, purely simply because coronavirus happened and there's a major impact on our finances. And the point Councillor Al-Hamdani makes about it's not just Oldham. So our motion actually deals with that. If you look at the resolution 2, it calls on the LGA to actually lobby government on behalf of all councils to deal with this matter. So I won't take any more of people's time, but just to once again thank everybody for their contribution, particularly the comments people made about our staff and the volunteers, because they deserve our thanks, not just one, but many, many times, because they were at the forefront dealing with all the issues to keep this town going and provide the support to the very vulnerable people in this borough. I hope the Tory councillors and the independent councillors can support this motion, because this is about maintaining local services. This is about supporting people who've done so much for us. We're not asking for anything else. And as somebody, I can't remember the name, said, please sign the petition. And I hope, Madam Mayor, that everybody can now support this motion, and let's ask the government, please fully fund the council for the losses that we incurred as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Does Council agree the motion? A roll call will be taken to vote upon the motion.
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al-Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali. Councillor Ali.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownlee. For. Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Chowan.
For.
Councillor Curley.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Hobin.
For.
Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
Aftab Hussain. Councillor Vidar Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes.
Hello?
For.
Have you got something there? Bring me back in 2 minutes, I'm on the line.
Councillor Jakes.
For.
Councillor Leach.
For.
Can I ask that you put your microphones on mute unless you're responding, please? Sorry, Liz, continue.
Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Vivian.
For.
Councillor Price. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Salamat. Councillor Salamat.
For.
Councillor Shah.
For.
Councillor Sheldon.
Abstain.
Councillor Sheldon.
Abstain.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
For.
Councillor Stretton.
For.
Councillor Surjan.
For.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Torr.
For.
Councillor O'Rayman.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Madam Mayor.
For. The motion is carried. Right. For motion 2, unfortunately, we only have 5 minutes. So could I ask the mover and the seconder to be as brief, and I do mean brief, as possible? Thank you. I call on Councillor Leach to move and Councillor Perthian to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's hard to express the outrage, the anger felt by so many of us at the loss of so many lives and suffering of so many people who should have received the care they deserve during the COVID-19 epidemic. Madam Mayor, if this government shared your compassion for the oldest members of our communities, we surely would not have had to confront this appalling situation. It's clear that systemic changes are needed to establish properly funded, fair caring practices, a new health and care system, which this Prime Minister had suggested a year ago was to be put in place imminently. Instead, the government refuses practically to support care workers with funding for the pay increase they deserve, denies access to visa exemptions granted to others employed by health and care, social care providers, in a new immigration system characterised by the Prime Minister as humane and sensible. The Prime Minister seeks to blame care homes for the deaths of those they have cared for. Inadequate supplies have denied many care workers access to protective equipment. Care workers have been put at much greater risk themselves of contracting COVID-19. This litany of egregious examples of the lack of care for care workers could go on, and addressing them systematically will require new legislation, the need for which we will no doubt debate in this Council at a later date. Now there's an immediate need for a change which we must address. The purpose of this motion is to add our voice to the need to rectify a specific issue, that of the lack of provision of full pay for care workers who are ill because of COVID-19. Because so many of them are employed at low pay rates with no entitlement to full pay while sick, with income only from statutory sick pay, they feel compelled to continue to work, even if infected with the virus, confronted either with having to try to live on the poverty of statutory sick pay or the risk of killing the very people they care for. Perhaps it's not incidental that the vast majority of care workers who are faced with having to make this decision are women. 77% of care workers are women. Madam Mayor, this is a situation which cannot be allowed to continue. Thus, our motion to support Unison's Care Worker versus COVID-19 campaign. Madam Mayor, I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Councillor Perthian, can you second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second this motion in support of care workers in their fight against COVID-19. As care workers, they are at the forefront of the struggle against this virus. They put themselves at daily risk to provide care and support to high-risk groups, including the over 70s and people with underlying health conditions. Care workers are twice as likely to die from coronavirus than our frontline NHS workers. Urgent action is needed now to protect our frontline care workers, providing them with priority testing, essential PPE and training. And I would like to draw your attention to a couple of examples from a care home owner's diary reported in the media recently. Number one, Saturday 11th of April, delivery arrived from the CQC, a box of out-of-date masks and one protective suit to share among 27 staff. Number two, Monday the 1st of June, a trainer came today from the NHS to train our staff in the use of PPE. A little bit late, I think. Recent figures from the ONS shows that the deaths in care homes overtook hospital deaths for the first time. Supporting this campaign is a clear way to reduce cases and deaths in our borough. A recent survey of over 2,800 care workers found 8 out of 10 workers would not receive their full pay if they were absent due to COVID-19. Receiving at the most statutory sick pay, which is £95 a week. Most, especially with families, won't be able to live off this amount of money. Protecting their pay if self-isolating or if they have become ill from COVID-19 is essential for them and their families. 40% of North West Commissioning local authorities have signed up to this campaign. I'm calling on this council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fithian. I believe we've got an amendment on this motion. I call on Councillor Al Hamdani to move and Councillor Hamlet to second the amendment. Could you please be brief as possible? We have 1 minute left. Thank you. Councillor Hamdani?
Yes, move the amendment, Madam Mayor. 50% of healthcare workers have reported PTSD symptoms, 25% severe depression. We have more healthcare workers who have died from this than almost any other country in the world. They have been failed. I heartily welcome the motion. I believe we need to go further, and that is the reason for the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlet, please. Please be brief.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to second the amendment. Just to top this off, obviously NHS workers are still being charged the £400 surcharge, even though the Prime Minister said he would axe it way back in May. And I find it really bizarre after we saw many of the frontline Tory ministers clapping away in front of cameras for carers every Thursday during the pandemic, yet who holds your loved ones or reassures your relatives at a time of need? And it's those who work in the care sectors and those who work in the care field as well. We should be thanking everyone in these sectors. And as my colleague said, it's about rewarding them in the right funds and perhaps maybe something to reward them for action and bravery. The sheer ignorance of the Home and Immigration Secretaries is breeding contempt towards those who look after our most vulnerable and sick 365 days a year, pandemic or no pandemic. I since genuinely hope that this amendment is carried in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamlet. Unfortunately, we haven't got time for questions, so I'm going to ask Councillor Leach to reply. Do you wish to reply?
Indeed, Madam Mayor, I do not support this amendment. It includes requests for sums of money which are quite substantial, and they, perhaps under the current circumstances, are not a priority. We acknowledge that there is, of course, a need for a much fairer, fairly funded social care system. But the items that are included in this amendment are not considered a priority at this moment, especially not badges to show how much we care, instead of fair funding for salaries of care workers. No to this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Al Hamdani to reply, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that the medals is an indication of what we do, how we support people. I appreciate what Councillor Leach is saying, but I think it's just a way of indicating that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council agree the amendment? A roll call will now be taken on the vote for the amendment. Liz, please.
Councillor Akhtar.
Against.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
Against.
Councillor Alias.
Against.
Councillor Ball.
Against.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
Against.
Councillor Briggs.
Against.
Councillor Brownridge.
Against.
Councillor Byrne.
Against.
Councillor Chatterton.
Against.
Councillor Chauhan.
Against.
Curley.
Abstain.
Councillor Davis.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Fielding.
Against.
Councillor Gary.
Against.
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
Against.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
Against.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
Against.
Councillor Hewitt.
Against.
Councillor Hoban. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hume.
Against.
Councillor Aftab Hussain.
Against.
Councillor Fida Hussain.
Peter Hussein.
Councillor Fida Hussain.
Against.
Councillor Ibrahim.
Against.
Councillor Iqbal.
Against.
Against.
Councillor Jakes.
Against.
Councillor Leach.
Against.
Councillor Malik.
Against.
Councillor McLaren.
Against.
Councillor Moores.
Against.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Mushtaq.
Against.
Councillor Fidian.
Against.
Councillor Price.
Against.
Councillor Roberts.
Against.
Councillor Salamat.
Against.
Councillor Shah.
Against.
Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Sheldon.
Abstain.
Shuttleworth.
Against.
Councillor Stretton.
Against.
Councillor Surjan.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Torr.
Against.
Councillor Urayman.
Against.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Madam Mayor.
Against.
Yeah, can I just come in, Madam Mayor? Les, can you, I was trying to record my vote as against. Could you pull me in, please, if possible?
Received.
Fida Hussain.
Thank you. The amendment is lost. We don't have time for members to speak. So, Councillor Leach, do you wish to reply?
I move the motion.
Does Council agree the motion? A roll call will be taken to vote upon the motion.
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
For.
Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownridge.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Chowan.
For.
Councillor Curley.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
That was me. It's a for.
Chris Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Hoban.
For.
Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Aftab Hussain.
For.
Councillor Fida Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes.
For.
Councillor Leach.
For.
Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Fidian.
For.
Councillor Price. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Salamat.
Can't hear Liz.
Councillor Salamat.
4.
Councillor Shah.
4.
Councillor Sheldon.
4.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
4.
Councillor Stratton.
4.
Councillor Surjan.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Torr.
4.
Councillor Urayman.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Madam Mayor.
4. The motion is carried. Moving on to item 10, notice of opposition business. Motion 1. I call on Councillor Al Hamdani to move and Councillor Hazel Gloucester to second the motion. Councillor Al Hamdani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think I'm letting out any secrets to say that planning is one of the aspects of being a councillor that's most challenging. That's for a lot of reasons, but not least amongst them is the fact that we face the contrasting demands of the need for more housing and the need to protect open spaces. And as such, the Conservative Party has made consistent demands to change the planning process, removing so-called obstacles to planning and at the same time cutting the funding that would make brownfield development more attractive. Now, we have seen an increase in house building, but as a result of the changes, nearly 30,000 homes were built in the UK last year from change of use. 14,000 of them converted from empty buildings, including former fast food shops and office blocks. Now, so far so good. Everyone is in favour of... Sorry, is everyone getting feedback?
Can all councillors turn off their microphones as we're getting feedback, please? Only those that are speaking need the microphones on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Everyone here is in favour of brownfield development, as is basically everyone out there. But the problem here is a simple one. With that change of use, currently comes an exemption from the need to have basic quality and space standards, and even the need to provide windows. I don't know if any of the other councillors here have had to stay somewhere without a window, and I have just once. I was working away from home, and as a freelance, you don't have a lot of money coming in. Well, not, I certainly didn't. So when I looked at renting a room, it was a lot cheaper to take one that didn't have a window. I really can't get across how dispiriting that was. I felt trapped. I felt imprisoned. I was in a tiny little room. There was enough space for a bed, not even enough space to walk around it properly, and a little tiny plastic bathroom that was part of the same room. I was there on a Sunday night, so I couldn't go out somewhere else. Everywhere was closed. So I had to sit in a tiny space, working with not even, like, the outside world just wasn't there. And that was several years ago, but that experience has lived with me. And I have a choice about that. For me, it was a one-off, and I went and I was there, and it was horrible. And then I went back to the lap of luxury, which at the time was a back-to-back terrace in Marsden. Now, for too many people, that's not a choice. People have to take what they can get, and they get trapped there. They sit there night after night in that tiny, cramped space, and to not have a window, to not have an idea of the outside world when the sun's coming down, it's a horrible experience. And we need minimum standards. And that need for brownfield development doesn't, or it shouldn't, exempt you from the need to build a home or a dwelling that is fit for people to live in. So is it possible to square the circle of those planning needs that I talked about at the start? No, not properly. But we can do a better job than we are. And that means making sure that new homes are fit for people to live in. That's why we've brought forward the motion, and I commend it to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hamdani. Councillor Hazel Gloucester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I speak to second this motion as I, along with many colleagues, believe that everyone should be and is entitled to live within a property that is fit for purpose. As Boris Johnson has now pledged to bring forward the most radical reforms to the planning system since the end of the Second World War, being able to ensure this will definitely become a problem. He starts with an expansion of permitted development rights. Now, we all know that permitted development has its place. Bringing before a planning department and committee every application for a conservatory or a small extension is not a good use of anyone's time. However, as with everything else, there are rules and the system in place works well to a point. Unfortunately, the area where permitted development is already falling short is where buildings are repurposed to provide flats or cunningly named apartments. A research exercise undertaken by Mr. Clifford on behalf of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors states that 70% of flats produced through permitted development are below the government space standards, with some just measuring 15 square metres. I just thought I'd throw an example in here, and that equates to 3.7 king-size beds. There are also cases where basements, or more appropriately cellars, with little natural light and also concrete blocks sitting on lorry-clogged industrial estates have been turned into flats by developers. Since 2015, over 60,000 flats have been created through permitted development in England, with 90% coming through from office conversions. This is popular with developers as they do not need to make a contribution to affordable housing or infrastructure. It is therefore far more profitable than going through the normal planning system. It is anticipated that these changes will come into force this September, and the details expected later this month. As we are all aware across the chamber, we have many unused buildings that are falling into disrepair, and we do need to find a new use for them. Some conversions, and we do have some in Oldham that have taken place, with perhaps a retail outlet on the ground floor and flats above, have repurposed our central oversupply of retail premises and met a happy medium. However, when we look at the many buildings available, which include banks, building societies, and a whole host of other commercial buildings, it is likely that these will also become suitable for conversion to residential uses and will lead to thousands of these conversions. We can therefore be assured that many of these premises will be extremely lacking of daylight, ventilation, and outlook, and will certainly not have much space. I am sure that, like myself, you will all agree that our residents should live in appropriate housing and not tiny, substandard rabbit hutches. I therefore urge you to support this motion so that we can ensure all our residents, and particularly those on the lowest wages, are not destined to be treated like rabbits, and that in a further 20 years, our local councillors of the future are not trying to deal with the slums we created. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. There is an amendment on this. I call on Councillor Roberts to move and Councillor Steve Bashford to second the amendment. Councillor Roberts, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I completely agree with much of what's been said, and it's completely unacceptable that people should be expected to live in homes without windows and under recommended minimum space standards. Everyone should have a safe, warm, affordable home that meets their needs. However, it is disingenuous to call the reason for this disgraceful housing referred to in the motion a loophole. It is the result of actions taken by the coalition and subsequent Tory governments which have allowed this to happen. As has already been referred to, there have been significant extensions of so-called permitted development rights which have led us here, and it will get worse. New permitted development rights came into force in June, and the PM announced that more will be enacted. A new wider use category will allow movement between commercial, retail and leisure uses without the need for planning permission. Freestanding and vacant commercial and residential buildings can be demolished and rebuilt without the need for planning permission. And upwards extensions of buildings, not just freestanding ones, which is what was previously agreed, but other buildings will also be allowed without planning permission. And this is before the overhaul promised by the PM referred to by Councillor Gloucester. While there are some protections, listed buildings for example, the council will have no say in what is built. It would therefore be misleading to pass a motion pretending that we will be able, for example, to specify room sizes, right to light and other civilised standards in homes built using permitted development rights. It is absolutely right that we should, where it is within our planning powers, adopt and apply high standards for homes. The amendment suggests that this is best done through the local plan process. The next stage in producing an up-to-date local plan will be the publication of issues and options later this year. Policies agreed through this process will inform and guide decisions taken by us as a planning authority. Decisions which must prevent poor quality homes and provide the best possible choices for our residents. I move the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Steve Bashforth to second, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the motion, but Anna's absolutely right. When we're going to do something like this, we need to be absolutely accurate. There's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about the planning process, and why would the general public know the ins and outs of it? It is an incredibly complex issue. And indeed, it was referred to at the start of the proposer's speech. But there are very strict rules around this, and councils have their hands tied in places where people don't realise it. So to say that this was a loophole was the wrong thing to say, and so we need to take that out, because it wasn't a loophole. This was the UK planning law that the Conservative government have put in place for us to obey. We have to obey the law. So, but people, I think over the years we have seen people trying to cram too many apartments into a building, and while there's always demand and there's a right place for low cost apartments, everybody agrees that everybody's allowed or should be entitled to a decent home, but the builders will not ensure that. We see crafty architects, don't we, showing us drawings of houses that meet the minimum sizes for the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom. But then we have narrow staircases and thin walls and no storage area. Most modern houses are small. Anyway, I think I live in a rabbit hutch, so, even though the house was built some 20, 30 years ago. So it's right and proper that we bring this motion and take it to the government, because I always say when we discuss planning things around the Greenbelt, where the public expect us to be able to say no and don't realise that we have to obey the law. You need to know your enemy, and the enemy is the Conservative government that is bringing all these in. I'll tell you what, Boris has promised reforms, and I think if you want to see what that looks like, I recommend that you read a paper by Jack Erring, and it's called Planning Reform for the 21st Century. Just read that. I recommend that everybody reads that, and you'll see probably what these reforms are going to be. It's horrifying, the amount of power that is going to be given over to the private developers. In fact, there's even a sentence in it that says streamlining the role of local politicians. That means taking us out. We might not even be able to take part in the planning process. We need to keep pushing the government that this is wrong the way they're doing it. Of course, there are things in the planning system that perhaps can be changed, because we do need to see a process that is probably overly complex. But we also need to be able for local authorities to retain the amount of control that makes sure that all development within the borough is safe and comfortable for the people who are going to use it and for the generations that come beyond us. The developers won't do that. The developers are interested in getting the money and they go. We are left with that and the people are here. So we need to make sure that we follow this. Just out of interest, Anna's summed it up, and I'm sure other people will come in on this. But we have actually. Does everybody remember the application for on the Yorkshire Street that was beside the Coliseum? Just overlooking that nightclub, and there was an application in to put to change that old factory, old sort of mill thing into flats, and some of those the flats in there, the bathrooms were absolutely tiny. Some of the rooms, had tiny little windows, overlooked one of these
30 seconds left.
Ginnels, and had to use forced ventilation. We actually refused it, but it was allowed on appeal. So, you know, we have a battle to fight. It's right to bring this to the council. It's right that we take it back to the government, but we just need to be absolutely accurate in the information that we put into it. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bashforth. Does any member wish to speak on the amendment? I've indication that Councillor Harkness would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so this is a serious issue. We want to, we all want adequate housing. Now, I sit on the planning committee, and sometimes what is put before us is not acceptable, but we don't always have the right powers to stop them. We should not be allowing any homes without natural light. We need to address what we can do locally and what we can do to lobby for national change. I agree with what Sam and Hazel have said, and some of what Hannah and Steve have said, I remember what the Yorkshire Street application as well, and you know, that just wasn't acceptable. But I don't support some of what this Labour administration amendment says, because I think it does tend to dilute the principles behind the motion a little bit, and it's a rather nitpicky bit as well on this unnecessary political sniping. So the amendment starts with this boring political sniping at the coalition government. It doesn't add anything to move the agenda forward, and it's again looking backwards rather than forwards on how we can address these modern slums. Okay, so the amendment also deletes the point that homes without natural light are inhumane, and this is not an acceptable standard for people to live by in Oldham Borough or anywhere else, and that's the bit which part of the amendment deletes. I'm not quite sure why the Labour group decided to disagree with this and decide to delete this bit of the resolution. So in the resolution, the amendment again seems to remove the suggestion that these dwellings are inhumane in nature. Whilst we do need to ensure that minimum sizing standards are included, we need to do this. We need to be doing all we can to stop modern slums, and this amendment tends to dilute this a bit. So I'm not particularly happy with the amendments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkness. Councillor Brownridge, please. Councillor Brownridge?
Yeah, no, sorry, my thing said I was unmuted and I wasn't. I'm very sorry. I think the issue here is that we have to sort out permitted development rights, because if something's permitted development, the local planning authority has no control over what's implemented under those powers. So I think the first thing is to actually stop this ability to change anything to residential without any input from the council. It's not just about the fact that you're creating modern slums, which I entirely agree, or you're creating totally substandard dwellings. It means we get no contribution to supporting facilities, healthcare, schools, all the things that have riled people over the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework consultation, the lack of ability to create the necessary infrastructure. If we're converting all town centre shops, for example, into flats, where do those people go for recreation? They won't have gardens, they'll have nowhere to dry their clothes, all the things that people need to live a civilised life. We cannot insist that they have. So the point about inhumane dwellings will be taken up by the local authority in their own standards. But if permitted development doesn't allow them to impose those standards, whatever they think is immaterial. So the point about the amendment, as I understand it, is to reinforce the fact that we need to sort out permitted development and stop carte blanche to convert any building into anything without anybody having any say, because that's the danger. If we can stop that, then our local plan processes can impose basic, and we should have national basic minimum standards. I agree with Councillor Bashworth. If it's left to developers, it won't happen. We all know they don't make adequate contributions to social housing now because they argue it's not viable. There's far too many ways of wriggling out of responsibility, so we have to get the basic legislation as airtight as we possibly can to try and prevent those terrible travesties in the future, which agreeably in agreement will create the slums of the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. Does Councillor Al Hamdani wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the comments generally throughout. I think there's a lot that's been contributed and there's some reasonable points in there on both sides. I do not like the removal of that extra emphasis on the humanitarian grounds in the amendment. I think it's important to recognise why we're doing this. I think it's really important that the change in the regulations that would happen would be one of a amendment that did not mention that, but we need to emphasise why it is important that we are doing this. And so I'm reluctant to agree to a motion which does remove that. I think there's an important point in the amendment about the difference between being given planning permission and building homes. And I think that there's a useful point there, but I also think it needs something extra in that line to emphasise it's not just about us not giving planning permission, but going beyond that and where we can doing extra that we, anything that we can to prevent those houses being built. I don't know if there's a way of rephrasing that would get that technical correction right that Councillor Roberts and Councillor Bashford have said, but that also just adds to that emphasis. If it was possible to reconcile those issues, then I would be in favour of the amendment, even with the pot shot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Al Hamdani. Councillor Roberts, do you wish to reply?
Sorry, yes, I was just looking at the amendment as it stands. I mean, I think that even if the amendment doesn't use the word humanitarian, it does refer to people having proper space standards and adequate light, which I think is what the outcome is that we all want. I mean, I suppose it's a bit difficult on the hoof and when you're trying to do it looking at the screen to kind of reword something. But the amendment is not attempting to undermine the importance of the issue. The amendment is just saying that it's a question of what legal rights the council has to make decisions. If we had the legal rights to make decisions, then we would be able to put the standards in that we think would meet the issues that the motion seeks to address. And I suppose it's just that just because the word humanitarian has been removed, that is the motivation, but to deliver that we need to have good local plan policies that provide good space standards and have enforceable requirements on developers, and we need to lobby the government to make sure that we can make as many decisions as possible locally, and that's what the purpose of the amendment is to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, right. Does Council agree the amendment? A roll call will now be taken upon the vote list. Can you record, please?
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
Abstain.
Ali.
For.
Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownridge.
For.
Councillor Byrne. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Chowan.
For.
Councillor Curley.
Abstain.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
Abstain.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
Abstain.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
Abstain.
Councillor Pack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
Abstain.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Holbin. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Aftab Hussain.
For.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes. 4. Councillor Leach.
4.
Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
Abstain.
Councillor Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Fithian.
For.
Councillor Price. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Salamat.
For.
Councillor Shah.
4.
Councillor Sheldon.
Abstain.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
For.
Councillor Stretton.
4.
Councillor Surjan.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Torr.
4.
Councillor Urayman.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
Abstain.
Madam Mayor.
4. The amendment is carried. Does any member wish to speak on the motion as amended? No. Does Councillor Al Hamdani wish to reply?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Does Council agree the motion as amended? A roll call will take to vote upon the motion as amended.
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
For.
Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Ball.
4.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
4.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownridge.
4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Chatterton.
4.
Councillor Chohan.
For.
Councillor Curley.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Gloucester. Chris.
For.
Councillor Gloucester. Hazel. Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
4.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Holbin.
For.
Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Aftab Hussain.
For.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
4.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes. 4. Councillor Leach.
4.
Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moores.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
For. Sorry. For.
Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Fithian.
For.
Councillor Price. 4. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Salamat.
For.
Councillor Shah.
4.
Councillor Sheldon.
For.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
For.
Councillor Stresson.
4.
Councillor Surjan.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Torr.
4.
Councillor Urayman.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Madam Mayor.
For the motion as amended is carried. Motion 2. We've got about 7 minutes for this, so I'm going to ask people to be as brief as possible. I call on Councillor Harkness to move and Councillor Williamson to second the motion. Councillor Harkness, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose the motion which is around tackling a culture of fast fashion, which leads to the overproduction and overconsumption of clothing. At the time, they can also be seen, see that people on low income in the borough are sometimes unable to afford the clothing that they need for themselves and their families, and that workers in the clothing trade are badly exploited. The Oldham Liberal Democrat Group have previously proposed motions to tackle to take action on food poverty, fuel poverty, water poverty and period poverty. Now we are turning our spotlight on clothing poverty. As the COVID-19 lockdown begins to be lifted, we need to look again at the ways that we can build Britain better. Two of our priorities must be finding ways to tackle climate change and finding ways to address poverty and social injustice in our society. We have only, in the last week, seen Boohoo involved in claims of exploitation and unsafe working practices. 3 major online retailers have dropped fast fashion brand Boohoo over allegations of low pay and unsafe conditions at a supplier's factories. This follows a Sunday Times report claiming workers at the Leicester factory were paid £3.50 an hour, while being offered no protection for coronavirus. And in November 2019, a scoping survey by home workers worldwide on the Greater Manchester textile and garment industry that included 182 companies operating around the region also found evidence that workers were being paid as little as £3 to £4 an hour. One worker quoted in the report described illegal working practices at one factory. He says, we're paid in cash instead of a bank transfer. They give us pay slips, but they only show 16 hours a week at £7.50 an hour, where in fact we're doing many more hours than that. Usually we do 40 hours a week from 8 AM to 6 PM, and we're paid around £500 a month. So we are proposing that Oldham Council works with representatives from the clothing manufacturers and retailers, the trade unions in these sectors and campaign groups to develop a strategy to end clothing waste, meet clothing needs and tackle the exploitation of garment workers in this borough. Clothing waste is just criminal when we have so many of our citizens in need. We need to create we want to create a vicious cycle by putting the two together, taking the clothes that people don't want and matching them with those who need them. And by doing so, we will reduce the number of clothes that hang unloved in wardrobes or are simply dumped. It's common sense, really, and there are some good projects from around the country that we can learn to help us do so. Leeds Community. Sorry, I think someone's got their microphone on.
Yeah, sorry, just bear with me. Again, can I ask that all councillors mute their microphones and only the person speaking has their microphone on? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so Leeds Community Clothing Exchange is one of several community clothes swaps around the country, and is helping people to become more aware consumers in fashion. This motion resolves to identify similar innovative schemes which can be replicated in this borough and establish a timetable and plan to do so. This motion resolves to work with a variety of different stakeholders and campaign groups to tackle these key issues and to explore how we can work with partners to support workers in this sector at risk of exploitation. Please support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkness. Councillor Williamson, to second the motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be as quick as I can. I second the notice of opposition business that's printed in the Green Book regarding clothing, poverty and waste. In Shore Town Centre, we have an abundance of charity shops which do a really good job of recycling clothing and raising funds for the various charities like the British Heart Foundation, Age UK, RSPCA, the Children's Society and of course Dr Kershaw's. But these have been closed for the last 3 months. I cannot be the only one to have had a bit of a lockdown clear out. However, it wasn't until the 15th of June that some of the charity shops opened their shops to customers and others didn't accept donations until around the 22nd of June. During that time, surveys have shown that people have just thrown clothes away rather than waiting and piling them up to be taken or dropped off at a recycling bank that you often find in supermarket car parks. In the boot of my car, I have about 5 bags of clothing, male and female, mostly female, not surprisingly, that I really want to find a way of giving them to people who would get some use out of them. I don't want to sell them, I want to give them away to help people in a small way out of clothing poverty. There are suits, shirts, shoes and casual wear. Some of it could be made into an outfit for an interview, like a smart suit or a smart shirt, polo shirt. I understand that there are organisations that do some of this already, and my colleague has spoken about this, but I'm not aware of any in Oldham. It wasn't until I started doing my own lockdown clear out did I know about those sorts of organisations. If I didn't then I'm sure there are others out there who also don't know. Perhaps we need to get an organisation working in the Oldham area. I don't want to take anything away from the various charities selling clothing, which is donated and sold at reasonable prices, and the money raised goes to worthy causes. But what about if you've got no money, or you've got a limited amount of money which you'd rather spend on food, and you've got a job interview but nothing to wear? You want to better yourself but you can't. Across the country there are schemes where people donate clothing and the third sector and local authorities then direct people who are in need to these places so that they can get clothing for their special occasions as well as the job interviews. People are given vouchers and some organisations put a price on some items so that they can so other people can come in and perhaps buy them, and all funds go back into the scheme. In sweatshops across the country, workers are being paid a pittance to make clothes for us to take home and then to throw them away. Let's respect those people, whether they're in the Oldham area or not, and think about what we can do with our clothing. We will not only be able to help those in need, but also reduce the environmental impact of these mass-produced products. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for any more questions. So, Councillor Hartness, do you wish to respond to anything?
No, move to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council agree the motion as amended? A roll call will now be taken to vote on the motion. Liz, please.
Councillor Akhtar.
Against.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
Against.
Councillor Alias.
Against.
Councillor Ball.
Against.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
Against.
Councillor Briggs.
Against.
Councillor Brownridge.
Against.
Councillor Byrne. Atherton.
Against.
Councillor Chowan.
Against.
Councillor Curley.
For.
Councillor Davis.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Fielding.
Against.
Councillor Gary.
Against.
Councillor Chris Foster.
For.
Councillor Hayes Foster.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
Against.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
Against.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
Against.
Councillor Hewitt.
Against.
Councillor Holbein. Councillor Hume.
Against.
Councillor Attab Hussain.
Against.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
Against.
Councillor Ibrahim.
Against.
Councillor Iqbal.
Against.
Jabbar.
Against.
Councillor Jakes.
Against.
Councillor Leach.
Against.
Councillor Malik.
Against.
Councillor McLaren.
Against.
Councillor Moores.
Against.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Mushtaq.
Against.
Councillor Fithian.
Against.
Councillor Price.
Against.
Councillor Roberts.
Against.
Councillor Salamat.
Against.
Councillor Shah.
Against.
Councillor Sheldon.
Against.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
Against.
Councillor Stretton.
Against.
Councillor Surjan.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Tor.
Against.
Councillor Urayman.
Against.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Madam Mayor.
Against. The motion is lost. Motion 3, I'm going to ask that we move and second this and go straight to the vote, please, as we are running out of time. Councillor Murphy to move, Councillor Gloucester to second the motion, please.
Move, Madam Mayor. Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go straight to the vote.
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
For.
Councillor Alias. Councillor Alias. Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Marie Bashforth. Councillor Stephen Bashforth. Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, 4, please.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownridge.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Chowam.
For.
Councillor Curley.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Holbein. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Attab Hussain.
For.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes.
For.
Councillor Leach.
For.
Councillor Malik. Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Fithian.
For.
Councillor Price.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Salamat.
For.
Councillor Shah.
For.
Councillor Sheldon.
For.
Councillor Shuttleworth.
For.
Councillor Stretton.
For.
Councillor Surjan.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Tor.
For.
Councillor Urayman.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Madam Mayor.
4. The motion is carried. Moving on to item 11, Oldham's COVID-19 response. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Fielding to second the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report in front of you summarises where we are at the point of the agenda for this meeting being published. The delay between the report being published and the meeting being held means we now have up-to-date information about COVID's impact on our borough, and I wanted to share those with you. I also wanted to share a summary of the work we've been doing to tackle the virus and to support those affected. With lockdown measures easing, it's easy to begin to become complacent about the spread of the virus and our own responsibilities in maintaining social distancing, practicing good hand hygiene and being alert to any symptoms. So we need to remember and remind others that the coronavirus is still circulating throughout Oldham and at rates higher than the national and Greater Manchester averages. In the week to the 5th of July, Oldham saw 48 new confirmed cases of the virus. This is down from 50 the week before and 87 2 weeks before. This figure, Madam Mayor, has been falling steadily since the end of May. And we need to thank our fantastic residents for adhering to the guidelines, well, the majority of them anyway. The figure used in many media reports is our rate per 100,000 population. I know Councillor Sean Fielding clarified this before, but I just wanted to touch upon it while I move this report. Our rate for the week up to the 13th of July is 11.8. When compared against others in Greater Manchester, our rate is the second highest, although quite a lot lower than Rochdale. The GM average is 8.7 per 100,000. To put these figures into more context, we remain a long way from the figures that Leicester saw a few weeks ago, where they had a rate of around 135 per 100,000. In the week up to the 11th of July, 2 COVID-related deaths were registered in Oldham, bringing the number of local lives lost to 257. Every one of those lives, Madam Mayor, that was lost is a tragedy, leaving behind devastated families and friends. In the last 2 weeks, we have finally, after so much lobbying, and I want to pay tribute to our Director of Public Health, Katrina Stevens, who works so incredibly hard behind the scenes. And when we talked earlier about our staff putting their lives at risk, I can guarantee and say this with so much confidence that Katrina's actually put her life on hold to make sure that we're now navigating properly through this crisis. After much lobbying from our Director of Public Health and from local and regional politicians, we've now been given access to all of the data we need to really understand how the virus is affecting the borough. Before this, we only had access to some of the data that showed who were tested positive, giving us only a partial view of who was affected and therefore only a partial understanding of where we need to target testing and public health messaging. And I emphasise on the partial release of that data, Madam Mayor, and I'll touch upon that more in my reply. But what this shows is that clearly areas of the borough are more vulnerable to coronavirus than others. Since this became clear, we have ramped up our testing, making additional testing available in the very areas that are most affected. We worked with communities to promote testing and share public health messaging, with positive results beginning to show already. We also know that some of our residents are more vulnerable in other ways, more likely to work in higher risk occupations, to live in larger household groups or in more crowded conditions, less likely to access health services or less likely to understand or access health messaging. As a system, we've been working with these groups to understand their circumstances and to put in place support that's tailored to them. To support this work, we've established an advisory group which has met twice already, which has so many different people who attend, and we've made great strides in helping to shape our responses so far. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have nothing to add to what Councillor Shah has said in introducing the report, and I think that many of the thanks that we would want to pay to our residents and staff and partners have been made in an earlier motion. I know we have some excellent advance notice of questions, so I will just leave it there and formally second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Does any member wish to speak? I think I have advance notice of questions from members. I call on Councillor Malik to ask a question. Councillor Malik.
Madam Mayor, do you want to just read it out so then we can just continue, please, if that's all right?
Okay. Can the relevant cabinet tell us how many children of key workers and vulnerable children attended school, and what is the picture across the borough of extending the offer to selected year groups from 1st of June? Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I really want to thank Councillor Malik for this really important question. Oldham schools and college have continued to be open throughout the COVID period, catering for vulnerable pupils and the children and young people of our key workers. Alongside this, home learning has been provided for those not attending school or college, and Councillor Mushtaq alluded to that earlier on. The exact numbers of vulnerable pupils and the children and young people of key workers attending varies on a daily basis according to shift patterns, but built towards about 11,000 pupils before the wide reopening of primary schools, which started to take place on June the 1st. And this has increased further since then, and as schools have widened all their opening arrangements. Primary schools started their wider reopening from June the 1st, with all schools increasing the number of children attending. This has also seen the number of key worker children attending continuing to increase since June the 1st. The Department for Education guidelines for secondary schools meant that the date for wider opening was Monday the 15th of June, and then only for pupils in years 10 and 12. All secondary schools increased their face-to-face contact with pupils in line with the guidance. The most recent daily attendance was just below 6,000 pupils and includes children of key workers, vulnerable children and those from other selected year groups. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. I call on Councillor Davis to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oldham Council is committed to an inclusive economy, and this council now spends almost 60% of its money locally, which is fantastic. To be truly inclusive, however, residents and local businesses need to play their part too, and I know that many in Failsworth, where I live and represent, are keen to. However, COVID-19 could have a huge impact on local businesses and how many are left after the crisis. Could the Cabinet member confirm how much money has been paid out to individuals and businesses with an M35 postcode via the various business grants and support schemes available? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Shah to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davis, for your question and your continuing lobbying for your residents and businesses in your area. The government has provided various financial packages to help support local businesses to survive the lockdown period. It's not been sufficient enough, though, to help all local businesses. However, through the small business grant, the retail, leisure and hospitality grants and the discretionary grant figures, I can confirm the following for the M35 postcode. So for the small business grants, the number of businesses that have been paid in M35 are 373, which amounts to 3.73 million. The retail, leisure and hospitality grant has been paid to 57 businesses in M35, amounting to £1 million in payments, and the discretionary grant has been given to 13 local businesses in M35, which amounts to £135,000. So in total, there's 443 businesses that have received support during this period, amounting to a total of £4,087,000. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I call on Councillor Alias to ask a question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I know we've had the community and voluntary sector help us out soon after as soon as we went into lockdown. My question is that what kind of impact has our staff members working in the community hub have had, and also what are our plans to make sure that we're helping the sector in future towards their struggles to survive and also for them to become sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alias. Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Alias for his question. And I know we're in this virtual setting, but I'm sure this is the first time Councillor Alias has had the opportunity to contribute. So in normal circumstances, we'd all be clapping you. So I just wanted to put that on record and say well done. But in response to your question, which is a really good one and really important one, in March 2020, the Council was given a statutory duty to coordinate food, self-care, medical supplies and other forms of necessary assistance to vulnerable groups in response to the pandemic. Within days, I'm proud to say, Madam Mayor, that the Council, in partnership with Action Together, who have been absolutely fantastic to this, so I'd like to say a huge thanks to Laura Windsor-Welsh, who's been spearheading that on behalf of Action Together. We mobilised 5 hubs to coordinate food, medicines, mutual aid, volunteering and community intelligence, and an emergency helpline to act as a front door and a triage. Behind this was a comprehensive food distribution network led by Oldham Food Bank and Action Together, with support wrapped around from the Council and Oldham Community Leisure. We quickly recognised that this work needed to go beyond our statutory duties, and by week 3 the group started to coordinate clear referrals for vulnerable groups from both the helpline and the 5 hubs to ensure wider need was being met. This included Age UK, CAB, housing providers, early help, mental health, benefits and advice and welfare rights, as well as community pharmacies, community health and adult social care, GPs and schools. In addition, a wide range of voluntary sector and crisis support have also begun to align to the hub model, with the coordination of white goods, furniture, transport and donated items being coordinated between voluntary sector, public services and businesses to complement the food offer. As of last week, we have helped 6,253 residents through the COVID helpline, delivered 5,800 food parcels and sent 17,448 letters to the over 70s to check that they are safe and well. As time goes on, calls to the helpline are dropping, but then that doesn't mean that the needs of people are getting any less. In fact, they're getting more complex, and the hubs are taking more from the helpline. Referrals were 50% a month ago, but are now up to 68% of calls are going through for more help. At the start of the pandemic, the need was coming from people that were isolating, but much of the need now is for people who are in economic crisis and are struggling to cope. We're therefore trying to make sure that more services are formally aligned to the hub so that we can best respond to this need as we transition from lockdown. And this is a really important piece of work, and it's important that we need to do this at the same time as being able to revert back to crisis mode, unfortunately, if that was ever needed, such as in the event of, I hate to say, but a winter lockdown. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Stretton to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The government has now announced the extra government help for people who have been shielding will end on the 31st of July. Has the government offered any funding to help local authorities support the most vulnerable when central support ends?
Sorry, Councillor Shah to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jean, Councillor Stretton, for your question. On July the 10th, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, advised the Council of its share of £63 million of funding intending to help local authorities to continue to support vulnerable people in communities and those struggling to afford food and other essentials over the coming months due to COVID-19. The funding allocation model has distributed funds to local authorities on the basis of population, weighted by a proxy measure of need, the index of multiple deprivation for the authority area. The Council's allocation of that is 361, oh my God, I'm going to do a Pretty Patel, but it's 3,061,000, and sorry, 61,227. The grant funding must be spent within 2020 and 2021 financial year, but the government expects that the majority will be used within 12 weeks of receipt of the funds. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the issue that we've got to deal with. The grant has not yet been received, and as the Council was only notified of the funding a short time ago, the arrangements for the distribution of the funding are still being developed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a number of questions, but they're all relating to the same thing, actually. Exactly a month ago today, the government made it a legal requirement of passengers that they wear face coverings on public transport, with a few exemptions. Commendably, many passengers comply with this requirement, but some don't. It is impractical for the tram and train drivers to enforce this measure, and for bus drivers and others, train and tram staff, to do so if this entails endangering themselves. Many thousands of our residents travel to work on our buses, trams and trains. Others travel to school or to enjoy leisure time. They all have a right to be safe. I would like to ask the Cabinet Member questions relating to that issue. How is the Council working with Transport for Greater Manchester, the bus, train and tram operators and the police to educate the travelling public about the requirements to wear the face coverings, and where the message is not heeded, enforced? I understand that tram regulations need to be changed for the law to be enforceable. When will this happen? Is further consideration being given to introducing conductors on trams to aid enforcement? And are there plans to distribute free face coverings to passengers without them at major tram, train and bus stops, as has taken place at major railway stations elsewhere? And finally, is there a mechanism by which a passenger might apply to Transport for Greater Manchester for a legal exemption from wearing a face covering on one of the grounds listed the legislation, in order that they will be issued with an official letter or card which they might be able to show staff and other passengers if challenged for not wearing a face mask? Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Shah, respond please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in response to the first bit of the question about partnership working and education for the public travelling on public transport, the Council continues to work closely with TFGM on following concerns raised by operators and members of the public, and to reflect a change in approach nationally, TFGM and partners under the Travel Safe engagement, specifically by undertaking a week of action and through more high profile and visible patrolling. Launching on Thursday 16th of July, so tomorrow, this will see a step up in the operational response and will involve GMP, British Transport Police, TFGM and other partner staff. The intention of this is to maintain an education and engagement approach in a more visible and proactive manner. However, warranted officers will be present and able to eject people from public transport where that's necessary. In the other part of the question, which was about tram regulations and will they be changed so the law is more enforceable, and when will this happen? The regulations are made under the Public Health Act in 1984 and are already in force. In response to the question about conductors and trams to aid in enforcement, I think I answered that in the first part to say that there's a programme that's going to be launched from tomorrow, which will address that. In response to the part where it says, are there plans to distribute free face coverings? Not at this point, as the wearing of face covering is becoming a more general requirement and relatively easily accommodated by the use of a scarf or other piece of clothing. And in the final part, regarding the mechanisms in which a passenger might apply to TFGM for a legal exemption, the government exemptions are clear, and the point regarding documentation will be taken to TFGM for their views and their consideration. I hope that answers your questions, Councillor Williamson. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlet, to ask a question, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I too have a similar set of questions, however, mine are surrounding a theme as well. Just in terms of how many residents have availed themselves of the testing service offered by the Army Mobile Track and Trace Unit in the town centre. Do we know how many of the attendees use public transport to get there? Were attendees who use public transport to attend the testing, to attend and tested positive, provided with alternate transport to get home, or did they have to return home the same way? Has any consideration been given to operate this mobile track and trace unit from district centres or on a rotating basis rather than simply Oldham town centre, in order to allow local people to use the service without recourse to public transport? Has any approach been made to non-military bodies to operate a similar service, increasing capacity and service regularity. I'm thinking more British Red Cross and St John's, Ambulance Brigade. And I'd also like to extend my thanks to Katrina Stevens and the Adult Social Services as well for their help.
Thank you. Councillor Shah, respond please.
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Louis Hamlet, for your question. We don't have the current information. It's not been given to us regarding your first part of your question about how many Oldham residents availed themselves for the testing service offered by the Army Mobile Track and Trace unit at the town centre. So we don't currently have this information given to us, and we don't know how many of the attendees use public transport. The mobile unit testing is for those who have symptoms, and people with symptoms are strongly advised not to use public transport for any purpose, including going for a test, according to national guidance. The mobile testing unit only takes samples which are then sent to labs for testing. As a result, it is not possible to tell if this can take up to 72 hours. However, the mobile unit testing is done for those who have symptoms, and those with symptoms are strongly advised, again, not to use public transport. We now have an additional testing option provided by Deloitte, commissioned by the Department of Health and Social Care, which can be used flexibly. A successful pilot period has been completed and at the Oldham Library. Plans are being developed to use this as a pop-up testing unit on a rotating basis around Oldham to ensure easy accessibility and respond to population needs. In your final part, Councillor Hamlet, has any approach been made to non-military bodies to operate a similar service? These have not been considered currently. This is because the determination as to who carries out the test is decided at a national level. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've got feedback again.
Yeah. Has somebody got their microphone on?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think it was me, sorry.
Thank you. Now that lockdown has eased, obviously more and more people are going out to shop or take leisure activities, sometimes a considerable way from home and for a considerable length of time. And this brings us to a major biological challenge that we all face on a regular basis, the need to answer the call of nature. Some local authorities have already opened their council-owned facilities, and I would like to ask what plans we have to open hours in parks and district centres, and when does she envisage the community toilet scheme will be fully operational? Thank you.
Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Hazel, Councillor Gloucester, for your question. I agree with you, actually, that it is important that, that as we open facilities, toilets are also available. We're currently working with Public Health to determine what steps we need to take to ensure the toilets are open in a safe manner. It is intended when we have everything in place and can regularly replace the consumables, particularly soap dispensers, to open them from 10 AM to 4 PM each day, starting from next Tuesday, the 21st of July. In addition to this, the businesses that have signed up to the community toilet scheme are being approached to safely open their toilets at the earliest opportunity. I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Taylor to ask a question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of the narrative in the public domain is unhelpful and appears to target certain communities. Is this a myth or something that is of concern to us in Oldham?
Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your question. It's a really important one and one that I'm glad you've asked. Unfortunately, even at the height of a pandemic that has brought our communities closer together, we'll always have those who seek to divide us. The reality is that the vast majority of Oldhamers, regardless of age, ethnicity, area, they have all followed public health guidelines and done everything they could to reduce the spread of this virus. There is absolutely no evidence, and I repeat, no evidence that any area or community hasn't done their bit. What the data we now have access to shows us is that our BAME communities seem to be more vulnerable to the virus. There are a huge number of potential causes for this differential impact, but what we do know is that where we have higher numbers of cases in our borough, we also have higher levels of poverty. The everyday inequalities our residents face are making them more likely to be victims of this virus. whether because they are more likely to live in larger households, in more cramped conditions, or because they are more likely to work in occupations that bring them into contact with large numbers of people. This isn't, Madam Mayor, about people's compliance with guidelines. It's about the reality of the lives people live and the additional risk that poses. Our focus must, and I emphasise on the must, be to eradicate those underlying inequalities. We are working hard with our partners and the third sector to create a fairer Oldham, where we work to reduce poverty in every single thing that we do, not through tokenistic one-off projects, but by redesigning our services so that their focus is always on reducing poverty and inequality. So I urge everyone in this chamber to ensure that we don't enter into divisive them and us narratives about the impact of COVID. And regardless of what the national media portrays, this pandemic has shown us, and every other time we've needed, how strong our communities are. But what we need is, instead of the them and us narrative, we need to know that the impact of COVID has had, but seek to understand even more about the underlying causes. And that's what we achieve to do here in Oldham. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shuttleworth, to ask your question. Councillor Shuttleworth.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. COVID-19 has highlighted inequalities within our communities that really need addressing. What is the Council and Cabinet member for COVID-19 recovery doing to protect residents that are already vulnerable through poverty? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Shuttleworth, for your question. The Council has recognised that this pandemic has disproportionately impacted those with protected characteristics, which includes those individuals and families on low incomes. We have produced an equality impact assessment which aims to help us identify and mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 across all our communities, and also outlines the steps, actions and mitigations that Team Oldham services have put in place to address and reduce these impacts. The Council has been operating a community hub and helpline, as I mentioned earlier in response to Councillor Elias's question, since March, which has provided a wraparound support service for any Oldham resident who has needed this, including those in poverty and those on a low income. The hubs have been making referrals into the Welfare Rights Advice Service, and help has been given to residents to access the Government Hardship Fund and £150 grants towards their council tax. Free school meal vouchers have been made available, and lunches have been provided for those attending school. Recently, though, a poverty workshop was held with senior leaders from across Team Oldham to explore how we can better coordinate our work across the system on poverty. Following on from this, we are now drafting an action plan to outline our priorities in the short, medium and longer term. The action plan will build upon and take forward our learning and our experience from the COVID-19 response, and reflect the additional challenges and demands on our services as the economic impacts of the lockdown are felt, and we know this is going to happen sooner than what we think. Lived experience will be at the heart of our approach, working with our partners and directly with people experiencing poverty to inform our future services, planning and delivery. The Poverty Truth Commission, which my Deputy Councillor Kath Ball has worked really hard with alongside Action Together, will be central to this, and we are currently working with colleagues to take this forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gary, to ask your question.
Yeah, could I just ask, we've got residents who've got family in hospital. You know, when you've got your family at the most vulnerable, when can you foresee hospital visiting restarting in whatever kind of form?
Councillor Shah, to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gary, for your question. And that's, I understand why you raised that, and it's a really, really sensitive topic as well. The difficulty is that access to the hospital for people to visit family has always been based on, it's never been about the hospital being awkward or not compassionate. It's always been to protect people and their safety and to safeguard the patients in the hospital, but and family and friends during this pandemic. There's ongoing conversations, and I suppose they'll be led by national guidelines, just like everything else, but it is something that is constantly under review. There's a meeting tomorrow at the Oldham Advisory Group and one next week with colleagues from the hospital. I will ask them questions there again, because we are aware that many communities across Oldham have also prevented themselves from accessing vital health services because of their anxieties about not being able to visit family members who might be in there, or even access health services directly for themselves. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shah, do you wish to exercise your right to reply? You only have 1 minute left.
Yeah, I do, Madam Mayor, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I'll try to run through this really quick. So I'm going to skip through the parts that I wanted to say about what we've been doing, but I think I just wanted to reassure people about the further strides we've made in tracking this, in tackling this virus and its effect on Oldham people. So we've put loads of systems in place, such as GP surgeries across the borough, contacting those who test positive to offer advice, arranging additional testing, engaging different communities, working with departments. But I wanted to let people know that we are one of only 4 areas in England who are part of a pilot to offer tests to asymptomatic people to track the spread of the virus. And we're writing to key employees in the borough to offer tests to their staff who are not showing symptoms, but may be at the risk of spreading the virus, for example, food businesses or taxi drivers. We're strengthening and further promoting key public health messages, and our GP systems have been brilliant because they've directly text over 80,000 residents with key messages. We're participating in weekly calls with Public Health England. We're working with national and regional bodies to implement contact tracing, which will help us further manage any localised outbreaks. In addition to our fantastic vital public health responses, we're also working hard to address the wider impacts of the virus on our communities and our local economy. Businesses have begun to reopen in the borough, and we continue to support them, providing advice and support on public safety, working with local businesses to understand how we can support them. This pandemic, I would like to finish actually, Madam Mayor, with an observation about the way central and local government have worked together, or not, I should say, during this crisis. I couldn't be prouder of the work our teams have done over the recent months. They've demonstrated expertise and more often than not shown the way to a central government machine that has dithered and delayed before allowing us to get on with it. The pandemic has shown local government at its best, and we've been an advert for further devolution of powers if there ever was to be one. We're all aware that Oldham has areas with some of the highest levels of deprivation in the country, and that the pandemic was likely to hit us hard. In that context, the figures we're seeing are very impressive, Madam Mayor. It's upsetting, therefore, to see places like Oldham highlighted as high risk or the next Leicester when our incidence rates are heading down, and we haven't experienced any of the localised spikes we've seen elsewhere. It's concerning that some of the reporting and even the government's own announcements seem to have been encouraging a notion that some communities are dangerous to other communities. That's not helpful, Madam Mayor, and it's incorrect, it's a lie. Last week, the government's Commission for Countering Extremism showed the way extremist groups online are using the pandemic to spread lies about specifically and especially Asian communities. Sadly, we know that Oldham isn't immune to this. We can't afford to be complacent, Madam Mayor. That's not what I'm saying. And it's important that we tailor our efforts to fit the needs of different communities. But we have to keep repeating the message that it's up to all of us to overcome this virus. It can affect any one of us at any time, and we'll build back better by working together and not by being divisive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. Does Council note the report? Is there any dissent to this? No. Okay. We'll move to item 12. Update on actions from Council. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
And I'll second the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council note the report? Is there any dissent? No. We'll move to item 13, Members' Allowance Transport. I call on Councillor Fielding to move that the allowance outlined in paragraph 1 continues and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the proposal.
Moved, Madam Mayor. Just to note that this report brings us into line with many other Greater Manchester authorities who pay an allowance for the Transport Committee.
Seconded, Madam Mayor, on the same basis.
Does any member wish to speak? Does council agree the proposal? A roll call will now be taken. Liz,
Councillor
please.
Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
For.
Councillor Ali.
For.
Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Marie Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Briggs.
For.
Councillor Brownridge.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Choam.
For.
Councillor Curley.
Against.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Gloucester Chris.
For.
Councillor Gloucester Hazel.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Harkness.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Hobin. Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Attab Hussain.
For.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar.
For.
Councillor Jakes.
For.
Councillor Leach.
For.
Councillor Malik.
For.
Councillor McLaren.
For.
Councillor Moore.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Mushtaq.
For.
Councillor Vivian.
For.
Councillor Price.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Salamat.
For.
Councillor Shah.
For.
Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Shuttleworth.
For.
Councillor Stretton.
For.
Councillor Surjan.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Torr.
For.
Councillor O'Rayman. Councillor O'Rayman.
He's not in the meeting. He declared his interest.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Madam Mayor.
For. The council has agreed the proposal. Item 14, annual reports 2019 and 2020. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the arrangements for council were changed to incorporate the submission of annual reports to a meeting, it was anticipated that members might want to use the opportunity to speak on things that they've done in their area and draw attention to it. I don't think it has the same effect when we're meeting virtually, and I don't think there'll be any appetite for that, given it's now 9:45. But these are in the public domain. There's some great examples of work that councillors are doing in their own wards from all members of all parties and organisations and none. And I just encourage them to take the opportunity that has been presented with these now being in the public domain to share them publicly and make sure your residents know what you're doing. So with that, I'll move the report.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Gloucester.
And I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Thank you. Does council note the attached annual report?
Noted. Yeah.
Is there any dissent? Okay. Item 15, review of whistleblowing policy. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the report, please.
I'll just formally move this, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gloucester.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on the report? Councillor Fielding, do you wish to respond? No? We're all happy?
Yeah.
Does council agree the recommendation as detailed within the report as amended? A roll call will now be taken to vote upon the report. Liz, please.
Councillor Akhtar. Councillor Akhtar.
4.
Councillor Al Hamdani.
4.
Councillor Ali.
4.
Councillor Alias.
4.
Councillor Ball.
4.
Councillor Marie Bashford.
4.
Councillor Stephen Bashford.
4.
Councillor Briggs.
4.
Councillor Brian Ridge.
4.
Councillor Byrne.
4.
Councillor Chatterton.
4.
Councillor Showan.
4.
Councillor Curley.
4.
Councillor Davis.
4.
Councillor Dean.
1.
Councillor Fielding.
4.
Councillor Gary.
4.
Councillor Chris Gloucester.
4.
Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
4.
Councillor Goodwin.
4.
Councillor Hamlet.
4.
Councillor Hack.
4.
Councillor Harkness.
4.
Councillor Harrison.
4.
Councillor Hewitt.
4.
Councillor Robin.
4.
Councillor Hume.
4.
Councillor Aftab Hussain.
4.
Councillor Fidar Hussain.
4.
Councillor Ibrahim.
4.
Councillor Iqbal.
4.
Councillor Jabbar.
4.
Councillor Jakes.
4.
Councillor Leach. Councillor Leach.
Apologies. 4.
Councillor Malik.
4.
Councillor McLaren.
4.
Councillor Moores.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
Passing the report.
4.
Have a look at the others. Do you think I need to do
Councillor
more?
Mushtak.
4.
Councillor Vivian.
4.
Councillor Price.
4.
Councillor Roberts.
4.
Councillor Salamat.
4.
Councillor Shah.
4.
Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Shuttleworth.
4.
Councillor Stretton.
4.
Councillor Surjan.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Torr.
4.
Councillor Urayman.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Madam Mayor.
4. The council has agreed the recommendations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.